Nevada land of shimmering deserts, rugged mountains, and forgotten ghost towns. Beneath its sun-baked landscapes lies a darker, hidden world, the abandoned mines that once promised wealth but delivered tragedy. These mines are not merely relics of Nevada's mining boom, they are silent witnesses to greed, hardship, and the lives lost in pursuit of fortune. For over a century, miners risked their lives in narrow shafts, treacherous tunnels, and unstable caverns. Accidents were frequent, violence was common, and many disappeared without a trace. Today, some say the echoes of the past linger, carried on the wind through abandoned shafts. Voices, footsteps, and whispers of the long dead are said to haunt these sites, keeping Nevada's dark mining history alive in spectral form. If you dare, join me as we explore the 25 most haunted mines in Nevada that echo with ghostly voices, where the past refuses to stay buried, and every shadow might conceal a restless spirit. Nestled in the arid hills of Nevada lies Goldfield, a town whose golden past is overshadowed by tragedy and lingering spirits. At the turn of the 20th century, Goldfield was the largest gold-producing town in the state, drawing prospectors, adventurers, and dreamers from across the country. Streets once filled with the bustle of commerce and the clamor of industry now lie largely deserted, buildings crumbling under the relentless desert sun. But it is not only the decay of wood and brick that haunts Goldfield, it is the mines themselves. Beneath the hills, in shafts that stretch deep into the earth, the voices of those who died here are said to echo still, trapped by the dark tunnels where fortune and death intersected. The story of Goldfield's mines begins with ambition and risk. Gold was discovered in the surrounding hills in the late 1890s, and within a few years, a sprawling network of shafts, tunnels, and vertical pits carved through the rock. Prospectors and laborers worked long hours for little pay, using hand tools and early explosives to extract veins of gold that glittered briefly in the harsh Nevada sun. Yet the mines were far from safe. Collapses were frequent, and explosions of gas or powder claimed dozens of lives at a time. Many of the victims were young men with little to lose, lured by the promise of wealth, who now lie buried somewhere beneath the shifting sands and jagged rocks. Visitors to Goldfield today often speak of an oppressive energy that seems to cling to the landscape. The town itself feels frozen in time, but the mines, some sealed for over a century, are said to harbor more than dust and rusted equipment. Paranormal enthusiasts who have explored the shafts report hearing the unmistakable sounds of life long gone. The rhythmic hammering of pickaxes, faint conversations carried through empty tunnels, and anguished cries that reverberate from the walls. One investigator claimed to hear the shouts of a foreman giving orders, followed by a chorus of murmured replies, though no living soul was present. Shadowy figures are perhaps the most unsettling phenomenon reported in Goldfield's mines. Witnesses describe miners appearing briefly in the flickering glow of flashlights, carrying pickaxes or lanterns, moving with purpose as if their workday had never ended. These apparitions often vanish when approached, leaving only the hollow echo of footsteps or the soft clink of tools striking rock. Some explorers have returned with photographs showing faint silhouettes in the background, outlines of men whose faces are blurred or indistinct, but whose postures suggest toil and concentration. One of the most tragic areas is the Goldfield Consolidated Mine, notorious for a collapse that claimed 20 workers in the early 1900s. Locals say that on quiet nights, the sound of digging can still be heard, the scraping of metal on stone, distant thuds, and the occasional muffled scream. Those who have ventured near the entrance after dark report sudden drops in temperature, an icy chill that cuts through the desert heat, accompanied by the feeling of being watched. Some say the spirits are restless because their deaths were abrupt, unfinished lives, interrupted mid-labor work, left incomplete. Stories from the town itself add to the eerie atmosphere. Residents recount hearing voices drifting from the hills when the wind blows just right, carrying fragments of old conversations. A former bartender, who worked at one of the few remaining saloons, said he often heard the distant clatter of tools late at night, even though no construction had been done for decades. One evening, he reported seeing shadowy figures moving past the windows. silhouetted against the faint glow of moonlight reflecting off the hills, only to vanish when he stepped outside. Explorers of Goldfield's ghost mines often carry cameras and recording devices, hoping to capture evidence of the paranormal. Many report sudden malfunctions, batteries die inexplicably, lights flicker, and audio devices pick up static that resolves into faint whispers or groaning. One team claimed their compass spun wildly when they entered a particular shaft, only returning to normal after leaving. Others describe hearing footsteps echoing behind them, even though they were alone. The combination of darkness, tight tunnels, and strange noises creates an overwhelming sense of isolation and dread, as if the miners themselves are still, working silently, observing forever, bound to the rock and dirt of the earth they once mined. Goldfield's legends are not limited to the mines themselves. Abandoned worker camps, bunkhouses, and the remains of the town's once busy streets are also said to harbor echoes of the past. Visitors walking among the collapsed buildings report feeling cold gusts of wind in the dead of summer, hearing the faint laughter of children, or glimpsing figures moving behind shattered windows. Some claim that the spirits are not only those of miners, but also their families, caught in the web of hardship and sudden loss that defined life in this remote boomtown. Despite its haunted reputation, Goldfield draws thrill-seekers, historians, and paranormal investigators. They are captivated not only by the stories of restless spirits, but also by the vivid history of human ambition and tragedy. The ghostly phenomena are said to intensify near anniversaries of mining disasters, with voices growing louder, footsteps more distinct, and apparitions appearing more frequently. Many believe this is the miners' way of reliving their lives, their labor, and the abrupt ends they met deep underground. Yet, not all encounters are terrifying. Some visitors describe an almost reverent experience, the feeling of witnessing the dedication and hard work of those who came before. A quiet acknowledgement of lives lost in pursuit of fortune, the shadows in the tunnels, the whispers in the wind, the faint hammering in the distance. All are reminders of the resilience and determination of the men who built the town from dust and rock. Goldfield's ghost mines remain a haunting testament to human ambition, toil, and tragedy. They are a place where the past refuses to be buried, where the spirits of miners echo endlessly through the tunnels and the hills, carrying the weight of unfinished work and lives cut short. And to remember that the echoes they hear are not mere imagination. They are voices from a boomtown that refuses to die, a reminder that in Goldfield the past is never truly gone. ChatGPT said Tonopah, Nevada, a town born in the shadow of silver, carries a history as rich in tragedy as it does in mineral wealth. At the turn of the 20th century, Tonopah's mines produced some of the richest silver deposits in the United States, drawing prospectors, laborers, and fortune seekers from across the country. Life in the mining camps was brutal, defined by long hours, dangerous conditions, and a constant dance with death. Over the decades, countless miners perished in cave-ins, explosions, and machinery accidents, leaving behind a landscape littered with abandoned shafts, rusting equipment, and the lingering energy of lives abruptly ended. For those who explore the area today, Tonopah's past is not silent. The mines themselves are said to whisper in the night. The earliest reports of strange activity come from the mining era itself. Workers often spoke of hearing voices deep underground, echoing through tunnels long after the shift had ended. Some claimed they felt cold drafts brushing past them in areas where no ventilation existed, or heard the faint clinking of tools striking rock when no one was present. Miners became wary of certain shafts, passing them quickly and muttering prayers to ward off the spirits of those who had fallen. These early accounts were dismissed by some as superstition, but the stories persisted, carried from one generation of miners to the next. Tonopah's mines were particularly perilous due to the combination of soft rock, unstable tunnels, and the widespread use of dynamite. Accidents were frequent and often fatal, leaving workers trapped or crushed beneath tons of rubble. Local folklore suggests that the spirits of these men never left the mines. Paranormal investigators today report hearing distant calls for help, faint groans, and the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoing in empty shafts. Some have captured fleeting shadows moving across walls, appearing to bend and dig, as if the miners' work were never truly finished. The underground passages themselves seem to act as conduits, amplifying sound and energy, so that even the faintest whisper becomes audible to those sensitive to the paranormal. At the entrances to the mines, ghostly figures are often reported. Locals describe seeing men in tattered clothing or old mining gear, standing silently in the moonlight. These figures sometimes watch passersby for long moments before fading into the darkness. One frequent visitor recounted approaching such a figure, only to have it vanish as he drew near, leaving behind a lingering chill in the night air. The effect is subtle yet unnerving, an overwhelming sense that the dead remain vigilant, tied to the entrances and tunnels they once called their workplaces. Cold spots are another commonly reported phenomenon in Tonopah. Investigators and hikers alike speak of sudden drops in temperature, sometimes intense enough to cause visible breath on warm nights. These chilling pockets often occur in areas associated with historical mining accidents. Many speculate that these cold spots are residual energy from traumatic deaths, the psychic imprint of fear and suffering left behind in the rock and soil. For those unprepared, a sudden drop in temperature can send a shiver down the spine and a warning that the past is far from gone. Tonopah's mining camps and towns themselves also hold echoes of the past. Abandoned shacks, rusting wagons, and collapsing barns are said to harbor shadowy figures and unexplained sounds. Visitors report hearing the distant laughter of miners, the rhythmic clatter of equipment, and the faint strains of work songs carried by the wind. Some claim to have seen apparitions peering from broken windows or lingering near the remnants of old boarding houses. These sightings are often accompanied by an oppressive sense of sadness, as if the spirits are trapped between the world they once inhabited and the one they can no longer touch. Paranormal teams exploring Tonopah mines often carry cameras, recorders, and EMF meters. Many return with audio evidence of whispers, groans, or the sound of tools striking stone. Some cameras capture shadowy outlines that vanish upon review. One investigator recalled seeing a figure moving down a shaft, lantern in hand, only for it to disappear when the light touched it directly. Another reported feeling a tug on his sleeve, cold and insistent, as though unseen hands were guiding him through the tunnels. These experiences are so frequent that Tonopah is now regarded as one of Nevada's most haunted mining sites. The stories also suggest that the miners themselves remain remarkably human in their apparitions. Witnesses describe figures performing familiar tasks, bending to inspect rock, swinging pickaxes, carrying tools along narrow tunnels. There is rarely an overtly malevolent presence, but there is an undeniable sense of unfinished work, a routine so ingrained it continues even after death. One team of investigators noted a series of footprints leading from a shaft entrance into the earth, only to vanish without a trace. They surmised that the spirits were walking invisible paths, retracing the labors of their lives. Locals are quick to warn visitors to respect the mines. Trespassing or mocking the spirits is said to invite unnerving encounters. Many hikers and explorers report that simply acknowledging the history, speaking quietly, or leaving a token seems to lessen the intensity of the haunting. Some leave small stones or personal items at the entrances, believing that the act of remembrance brings a measure of peace to the miners still wandering the shafts. The combination of natural hazards, historical tragedy, and lingering paranormal activity has given Tonopah mines a reputation that transcends folklore. Tourists, historians, and ghost hunters alike are drawn to the area, seeking to experience the echoes of the past firsthand. While the silver veins have long since run dry, the stories of the miners endure, carried in the shadows, the winds, and the faint sounds that travel through the abandoned tunnels. Rhyolite, Nevada, stands as a haunting testament to the fleeting promises of wealth and the enduring weight of loss. Once a thriving mining town in the early 1900s, it drew thousands of prospectors and entrepreneurs who believed they could strike it rich amid the rich gold and silver veins of the surrounding desert. The streets were lined with grand hotels, saloons, banks, and opera houses, all built in a frenzy of ambition and optimism. Yet, like the precious metals the miners sought, the town's prosperity was fleeting. By 1916, the mines had largely played out, and Rhyolite was abandoned almost overnight, leaving behind empty buildings, decaying infrastructure, and a profound sense of unfinished business. The mines surrounding Rhyolite were both the town's lifeblood and its curse. Countless men and women toiled deep underground in perilous conditions, their labor fueled by hope and desperation. Cave-ins, accidental explosions, and collapses claimed numerous lives, often leaving bodies trapped beneath rock and earth. Families left behind would rarely see closure, and many of the miners' remains were never recovered. Over time, locals began to speak of strange phenomena in and around the mines. Voices calling out from empty tunnels, footsteps echoing where no one walked, and shadowy figures appearing at dusk became common lore, whispered around campfires and in the few remaining buildings of the town. Visitors to Rhyolite today are immediately struck by an eerie stillness. The streets, cracked and overgrown, seem to breathe with the memory of activity long past. Yet the silence is deceptive. Those who venture near the old mines often report the sensation of being watched, even when completely alone. Cameras and recording devices have captured fleeting shadows moving across walls, and audio equipment sometimes picks up faint clinks of metal, as though pickaxes are still striking rock deep underground. Many explorers describe a chill that descends suddenly, a stark contrast to the arid desert air, which feels almost like a warning that the spirits of the past are present and aware. The phantom miners of Rhyolite seem to linger in both the tunnels and on the desert surface. Witnesses recount seeing figures bending over unseen work, dragging shovels or swinging pickaxes, only to vanish when approached. One paranormal investigator described a shadowy man standing near a collapsed shaft, lantern in hand, as if searching for something lost long ago. When the investigator called out, the figure dissolved into the air, leaving only the faint smell of dust and wet earth behind. Locals interpret these apparitions as miners still seeking the fortune that was never realized. Endlessly retracing steps they took in life, the mines themselves amplify these spectral encounters. Narrow shafts, darkened passageways, and unstable tunnels create an environment where sound and energy behave unpredictably. Footsteps echo unnaturally, whispers seem to circle back from unseen corners, and cold spots appear with no explanation. Investigators have often noted that certain areas of the mine feel heavier, a tangible pressure in the air that induces a sense of dread. Many believe these concentrated pockets of energy are tied to the deaths and sufferings of the miners, memories embedded in the very walls of rock. Rhyolite's ghostly reputation extends beyond the mines. Visitors walking through the town report hearing the soft click of boots on wooden floors, as if the deserted saloons or hotels have been reoccupied by patrons long gone. Doors swing slightly on their own in the windless desert, and the occasional whisper or laugh carries across the empty streets. Some have claimed to glimpse shadowy figures peering from broken windows, only to vanish when approached. Even during daylight, an uncanny sense of unease permeates the air, a reminder that this town never fully sleeps. One of the most frequently reported phenomena involves the miners' camps and the areas near the collapsed shafts. Witnesses have described seeing spectral workers carrying lanterns, their movements deliberate and rhythmic, as though performing the same tasks they did decades ago. The figures rarely interact with the living, but their presence is felt as a weight in the chest, a subtle chill, or the sense that something unseen is following. Some explorers have left small tokens, coins, stones, or personal items, as a form of acknowledgement, believing that recognition may ease the spirit's unrest. The history of tragedy in Rhyolite's mines seems to have left a permanent mark on the land. Accidents were frequent, and medical care was minimal, meaning that many deaths were sudden, painful, and unresolved. Paranormal enthusiasts argue that this trauma creates residual energy, a psychic imprint that manifests as apparitions, strange noises, and unexplained sensations. Unlike the malevolent spirits of some legends, the miners' ghosts are often described as weary or searching rather than angry, echoing a life of relentless labor, ambition, and untimely death. Even the town's landmarks carry whispers of the past. The remains of the bank, the railway station, and the opera house are often reported as focal points for apparitions and strange phenomena. Visitors describe hearing indistinct chatter or the faint notes of piano music drifting from empty buildings. Shadowy figures can appear in hallways or doorways, lingering for moments before disappearing. It is as if the town itself remembers every footstep, every hurried conversation, and every desperate attempt to strike it rich. Rhyolite's ghostly presence is not limited to sight and sound. Many explorers speak of a pervasive feeling of melancholy, an emotional residue left by decades of ambition and disappointment. The spirits seem bound not only to the land and mines, but to the dreams and losses of the people who lived and died there. A sense of unfinished business permeates every abandoned street and tunnel, making the desert ghost town feel alive in ways both subtle and unnerving. The legacy of Rhyolite's mines is therefore both historical and spectral. The silver veins that drew countless hopeful souls may be exhausted, but the echoes of their labor, suffering, and aspirations remain embedded in the earth, the buildings, and the very air. Visitors who explore these sites often leave with more than photographs or relics. They leave with a lingering awareness of lives once lived in pursuit of wealth and the spirits that continue to wander in search of what they lost. Virginia City, Nevada, is a town carved from ambition, silver, and sweat. Famous for the Comstock Lode, the richest silver deposit in American history, it became a bustling hub of miners, merchants, and fortune seekers in the mid-19th century. The town thrived on the labor of men who risked their lives daily in narrow, unstable shafts, working long hours with little regard for safety. Explosions, cave-ins, and deadly collapses were common, and countless miners never returned to the surface. Today, Virginia City stands as a living relic of that era, its streets and mines echoing with the energy of lives spent chasing wealth and, for many, meeting tragic ends. But alongside the preserved history is a darker, spectral side, the silver specters of Virginia City's mines. Visitors and paranormal investigators alike report that the mines are far from silent. Deep underground, the faint sound of picks striking rock, once the lifeblood of the silver rush, is said to continue. Echoing through abandoned shafts, these sounds are often described as rhythmic and deliberate, as though the miners' work continues decades after their deaths. Some explorers claim to hear the distant creak of timber supports or the muffled chatter of men in conversation, even when they are alone in total darkness. The effect is unsettling, a reminder that the lives and labor of the miners left a lasting imprint on the earth itself. Among the most frequently reported phenomena is ghostly laughter. Some say it begins as a faint echo, almost playful, like the banter of men sharing a brief moment of levity in an otherwise grueling day. Yet the laughter can quickly shift in tone, becoming hollow or anxious, reflecting the harsh and often fatal conditions miners endured. Visitors describe a feeling of unease when they hear it, as if unseen eyes are watching their every move. In several cases, investigators have noted that the laughter seems to follow them, drifting along the tunnels and bouncing off walls in unpredictable patterns. Whispers are another common occurrence. They are often indistinct, carrying fragments of conversations or commands, orders from foremen, warnings from coworkers, or even pleas for help from miners trapped below. The whispers are rarely loud, but they are persistent, echoing in the shafts long after the mines have been abandoned. Some explorers report that the whispers respond to their presence. Approaching a particular tunnel entrance seems to draw the sounds closer, while retreating can make them fade. For those sensitive to the paranormal, these murmurs can evoke a deep, emotional connection to the men who labored and suffered in the mines. Shadowy figures are also a frequent sight in Virginia City's mines. Visitors describe fleeting glimpses of miners bending over unseen work, swinging pickaxes, or carrying lanterns along narrow tunnels. These apparitions often vanish when approached directly, leaving only the faintest outline or a lingering shadow. One investigator reported seeing a figure pause to look back over its shoulder, as if acknowledging his presence before dissolving into darkness. Another explorer described feeling a sudden brush against the arm, as though an invisible hand had reached out from the past to make its presence known. Such encounters are both chilling and strangely human, offering a glimpse into the relentless work and danger that defined mining life in the Comstock lode. The mines themselves are a perfect stage for these hauntings. Narrow shafts, deep tunnels, and unstable rock formations amplify sound and energy, creating an environment where the boundaries between the living and the dead feel fragile. Cold spots are commonly reported, sudden drops in temperature that cut through even the thickest clothing. Investigators note that these chilly areas often correspond to locations where mining accidents or deaths were recorded, suggesting that the energy of trauma has been preserved in the very rock. The combination of auditory, visual, and tactile phenomena gives visitors an overwhelming sense of presence, as if the miners themselves continue to work, trapped between life and death. Above ground, Virginia City also bears the weight of its history. Abandoned structures, decaying boarding houses, and old saloons are said to harbor echoes of the past. Some visitors report hearing footsteps on creaking floors, doors opening and closing without cause, or faint music drifting through empty streets. Shadowy figures sometimes appear in windows or along deserted alleys, vanishing when approached. Locals often describe the area with a mix of reverence and wariness, acknowledging that the past is very much alive in subtle, unexplainable ways. The silver specters are not universally malevolent, but their presence is deeply felt. Many explorers report a sense of unfinished business, as if the miners' labors continue even after death. Some paranormal teams leave tokens or offerings, small coins, stones, or personal items in the tunnels, hoping to acknowledge the spirits and provide some peace. Others speak of a quiet respect that must be maintained. The mines are a place where intrusion or disrespect can provoke stronger, more disturbing manifestations. Historical tragedies seem to be at the core of Virginia City's hauntings. Explosions, sudden cave-ins, and the physical exhaustion of long shifts created conditions for untimely deaths. Medical care was minimal, and emergency response often impossible, leaving many miners to perish alone underground. The cumulative effect of this suffering seems to have left an imprint on the mines, a lingering energy that manifests as sound, shadow, and sensation. In many ways, the silver specters serve as a bridge between the past and present, a reminder that the pursuit of wealth often came at a grave cost. Explorers, historians, and thrill-seekers continue to visit Virginia City, drawn by the promise of encountering history and the paranormal. They find not only the preserved architecture and the stories of fortune seekers, but also the subtle and sometimes startling reminders that the men who worked and died in these mines are still with them in some form. The echo of a pickaxe, the fleeting shape in a tunnel, or the whisper in the dark serves as a testament to the enduring presence of the miners. Belmont, Nevada, a town once built on the promise of silver and gold, now stands as a silent witness to ambition, greed, and tragedy. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, miners flocked to Belmont's rugged hills, drawn by rumors of rich veins of ore. The mines quickly became the lifeblood of the town, fueling commerce, housing, and the hope of fortune. Yet, the work was perilous. Narrow shafts, unstable rock, and poorly supported tunnels made cave-ins a constant threat. Countless men lost their lives in these mines, trapped beneath tons of rock, their bodies sometimes never recovered. Over the decades, these accidents left not only physical scars but also a lingering sense of unrest. Today, the abandoned Belmont mines carry a reputation as one of Nevada's most haunted locations, where the echoes of past disasters still reverberate through the earth. Visitors to the Belmont mines often describe an immediate feeling of unease, as if the history of suffering and sudden death is palpable in the air. The tunnels, dark and claustrophobic, seem to hold on to every sound, amplifying the faintest footstep or distant drip of water. Many explorers report sensing eyes upon them in the pitch-black shafts, a subtle but undeniable feeling that they are not alone. Some claim that even in wide-open caverns, this sense of being watched persists. A spectral presence lurking just beyond the edge of perception. The most common phenomenon reported is the faint cries of miners, often described as desperate and fragmented. These sounds echo through tunnels where no one walks. Investigators have recorded these murmurs, whispers of help that seem to rise and fall unpredictably. Some interpret the cries as the spirits of miners who perished in caverns, eternally replaying the moments of their entrapment. The effect is chilling. Explorers sometimes pause mid-step, straining to locate the source, only to find silence, as if the voices vanish the moment they are confronted. Cold drafts are another frequent occurrence, appearing in places where no wind could logically reach. Visitors report sudden drops in temperature that make breath visible in the otherwise dry air. These pockets of cold are often accompanied by other unexplained phenomena, fleeting shadows, the clinking of tools, or an overwhelming sense of pressure in the chest. Paranormal enthusiasts speculate that these chills are residual energy left behind by the traumatic deaths that occurred in the mines, physical imprints of fear and suffering embedded in the walls and rock. Shadowy figures also appear with unsettling regularity. Witnesses describe fleeting glimpses of miners bending over tools, climbing ladders, or walking down tunnels with purpose. These figures are often indistinct, their outlines blurred, yet their movements convey the familiarity and routine of someone who lived and worked in these mines. Many explorers recount seeing these apparitions vanish when approached, leaving only the echo of footsteps or the faint clatter of imaginary tools. One visitor claimed to feel a tap on the shoulder from an invisible presence, a reminder that these spirits are tethered to the world in subtle, almost tactile ways. The history of cave-ins at Belmont adds to the haunting. Mines frequently collapsed without warning, burying men alive beneath tons of rock. Some shafts were poorly reinforced, while others were weakened by dynamite blasts intended to hasten extraction. The suddenness of these deaths meant that many miners never had a chance to escape or be rescued. Locals suggest that the ghosts lingering in Belmont's tunnels are replaying these final frantic moments, eternally searching for an exit that no longer exists. Explorers have noted that certain areas feel heavier than others, oppressive with energy, as if the weight of past tragedies still presses upon the living. Paranormal investigators often bring audio recorders, cameras, and EMF detectors, hoping to capture evidence of the mine's spectral inhabitants. Many report that their devices behave erratically. Batteries drain quickly, lights flicker, and recording devices capture static that occasionally resolves into whispers, footsteps, or groaning. One team reported seeing a shadow move across a rock face, pause, and then disappear entirely, leaving only a chill in its wake. Such encounters reinforce the sense that Belmont mines are alive with the memories and energies of those who labored and perished within them. The abandoned infrastructure above ground also carries its own echoes. Old miners' cabins, collapsed boarding houses, and deserted supply sheds are said to host residual activity. Visitors report hearing footsteps along wooden floors, the distant slam of doors, or the low murmur of conversations in empty spaces. Shadowy figures are sometimes glimpsed in broken windows or moving between dilapidated buildings. Even in daylight, these sights are unnerving, suggesting that the spirits are not confined to the tunnels below, but roam the surface as well, lingering in the places where they once lived and worked. Some explorers leave offerings or tokens at the entrances to the mines, believing that acknowledgement may ease the miners' unrest. Small stones, coins, or personal items are left as gestures of respect, intended to honor the lives lost. Many claim that doing so reduces the intensity of paranormal activity, as if the spirits recognize the act and allow for a brief moment of calm. Others simply tread lightly, speaking softly and moving with care, understanding that intrusion or disrespect may provoke the more unsettling manifestations. Belmont Mine's haunting is both historical and emotional. The silver and gold that drew miners to the area left a legacy of prosperity, but also of danger, loss, and unresolved tragedy. The echoes of collapsed tunnels, the cries of trapped miners, and the lingering shadows serve as reminders that human ambition often carries a high cost. Paranormal phenomena in the mines allow visitors to connect with the past in a visceral way, experiencing the fear, desperation, and perseverance of those who once walked these narrow shafts. Austin, Nevada, a small desert town nestled among arid hills and rugged canyons, tells a story of wealth, ambition, and haunting loss. During the silver rush of the late 19th century, the Austin mines became a hub for fortune seekers, drawing miners from across the country eager to stake their claims in the rich veins of ore. Life in the mines was grueling and dangerous. Miners worked long hours in narrow, unstable shafts, facing the constant threat of cave-ins, explosions, and toxic gas exposure. Malnutrition and disease were common, as the harsh desert environment made access to fresh food and medical care difficult. Those who perished were often buried hastily or left in the tunnels themselves, creating a legacy of tragedy that persists to this day. The mines of Austin are infamous not just for their historical hazards, but for the paranormal activity that has been reported over decades. Visitors entering the abandoned shafts frequently describe a profound sense of unease, a feeling that unseen eyes are tracking every step. The silence of the desert above ground contrasts sharply with the oppressive atmosphere below, where shadows seem to move along tunnel walls, and disembodied voices echo without source. Ghost hunters and explorers alike report hearing the faint clanging of pickaxes, the scrape of shovels against rock, and distant murmurs of conversation that vanish as quickly as they appear. These auditory phenomena are often accompanied by sudden, inexplicable chills, sometimes intense enough to make breath visible in the otherwise dry air. The spirits of the miners are said to linger, particularly in areas associated with past accidents. Cave-ins were frequent, and the remains of those trapped in the tunnels are believed to leave psychic impressions that manifest as paranormal activity. Witnesses often describe fleeting shadows moving in peripheral vision, figures that vanish when directly observed. Some have felt touches or brushes against clothing, invisible hands reminding them of the miner's presence. Explorers recount instances where tools appear to move on their own, swinging, sliding, or falling as though manipulated by unseen hands. These objects seem to mimic the labor once performed by the miners, suggesting that the spirits are endlessly repeating tasks that defined their lives. Among the most chilling experiences reported are disembodied voices, whispered commands, frantic cries for help, and fragments of conversation can be heard in the dark tunnels. Paranormal investigators have captured audio recordings in which these sounds appear and disappear in ways impossible to explain. Some visitors describe hearing their own names called softly, or the sensation of urgent warnings being shouted from deep within the shafts. The voices often evoke strong emotional responses, a mix of fear and sadness, as if the echoes of past suffering still cling to the miner's spiritual presence. Shadowy figures are another common phenomenon in Austin's mines. Witnesses describe seeing miners bending over unseen work, climbing ladders, or moving cautiously along the tunnels as though inspecting unstable rock. These apparitions are usually indistinct, dark silhouettes without discernible features, but their movements convey a human familiarity, the rhythm of work, the attention to labor, and the careful balance required to navigate treacherous tunnels. Some explorers report seeing a figure pause and look back at them, before dissolving into darkness, leaving only the faint outline of a lantern or tool behind. These fleeting encounters reinforce the idea that the spirits remain tethered to the mines, unable to leave the places that claimed their lives. The mine's architecture amplifies these haunting experiences. Narrow shafts, deep tunnels, and fragile supports create an environment where sound carries unusually far and energy seems concentrated. Cold spots appear suddenly, often in areas associated with accidents or deaths. Some investigators describe entire sections of the mines that feel oppressive, a heavy weight pressing down on the chest, as if the tunnels themselves remember the suffering that occurred within them. Paranormal teams have noted that EMF meters spike without cause, cameras capture orbs or shadows, and audio equipment records static that occasionally resolves into intelligible sounds. These manifestations create a sense that the mines are alive with memory, and that the miner spirits continue to move among the tunnels as they did in life. Even above ground, the legacy of the miners' suffering lingers. The abandoned town structures, shacks, supply depots, and boarding houses are often described as having residual energy. Visitors report footsteps on wooden floors, doors opening and closing on their own, and shadowy figures glimpsed in windows or alleys. The desert wind can carry faint murmurs, laughter, or the distant scrape of tools, blending the natural with the spectral. Many local residents acknowledge these phenomena, often advising visitors to tread carefully and show respect for the spirits that remain. Those who explore Austin's mines often take measures to honor the miner's memory. Small tokens, such as stones, coins, or personal items, are left at shaft entrances as gestures of acknowledgement. Explorers report that such acts sometimes reduce the intensity of paranormal manifestations, as if the spirits recognize the respect being shown and temporarily withdraw. Others simply move quietly and deliberately, mindful that intrusion or mockery can provoke stronger, more unnerving encounters. The haunting of Austin's mines is both historical and emotional. The miners' lives were defined by peril, exhaustion, and hope, and their untimely deaths left unfinished work and unresolved struggles. The paranormal phenomena, the voices, shadows, cold spots, and moving objects, serve as reminders that the past is not gone. Instead, it lingers in the tunnels, bound to the places and activities that once occupied the living, reflecting the relentless pursuit of wealth, the dangers of labor, and the fragility of human life. Today, Austin draws historians, adventurers, and paranormal enthusiasts who seek to connect with the echoes of the past. The mines are not merely relics of the Silver Rush. They are living memorials, steeped in history and haunted by those who once toiled within them. To step into the tunnels is to feel the weight of lives lost, the repetition of labor unfinished, and the lingering presence of miners whose spirits remain eternally bound to the shadows beneath the desert. Pioche, Nevada, is a town forged from silver, ambition, and lawlessness, perched among the rugged hills of the American West. During the late 19th century, it was one of the richest silver mining towns in the country, attracting thousands of miners eager to stake their claim in the vast veins beneath the earth. But Pioche was as dangerous above ground as it was below. The town earned a reputation for violence, gambling disputes, and deadly saloon brawls. Many miners met their end, not from the hazards of the mine, but from gunfights in the streets, mob-like justice, or bitter arguments over claims. In the mines, the dangers were equally lethal. Cave-ins, falling rock, and poorly maintained shafts claimed countless lives. Today, the abandoned Pioche mines are known not only for their history of labor and violence, but also for the lingering presence of what locals call the lawless spirits. Visitors to Pioche's old mines often describe an immediate, oppressive feeling upon entering the tunnels. The darkness feels thicker here, heavier, as if the very walls remember the chaos and tragedy that occurred centuries ago. Explorers frequently report the sensation of being watched, even in isolated shafts where no other person is present. Cold drafts appear inexplicably, cutting through clothing and leaving an unnatural chill. Some have described these pockets of cold as almost sentient, following them as they move through narrow passages or deep chambers. The atmosphere is heavy with a sense of unresolved conflict, a lingering residue of the miners' struggles for wealth, dominance, and survival. Among the most common reports are auditory phenomena. Ghost hunters have recorded faint voices echoing through the tunnels, often resembling arguments or disputes that dissolve into silence. Some explorers claim to hear miners shouting warnings about unstable rock. Others catch fragments of conversations about claims, pay, or grievances, as if the echoes of past conflicts had become embedded in the stone itself. These sounds are unpredictable. One moment there is nothing but silence. The next, the faint argument of two men rises from a shaft, leaving visitors tense and disoriented. For many, the auditory manifestations are unnervingly realistic. conveying urgency and fear as though the miners' disputes continue beyond death. Shadowy figures are another frequent phenomenon in Pyoche mines. Visitors report glimpses of miners moving in the periphery, bending over unseen work, climbing ladders, or standing silently in dark corners. These silhouettes often vanish when approached directly, leaving only the faint impression of a body or the faint flicker of a lantern. Some explorers have felt the weight of an unseen presence nearby, a sensation that a figure is standing just behind them, watching their every step. The movements of these shadows are deliberate, often echoing the rhythm of the miner's labor or the tension of confrontation, a spectral reenactment of both toil and conflict. The mines themselves amplify these experiences. Narrow shafts, unstable rock formations, and the echoes of long corridors create an environment where sound and energy behave strangely. Footsteps echo unnaturally, whispers appear to circle back from corners that do not exist, and cold spots form in areas associated with past accidents or violent deaths. Paranormal teams have often recorded EMF spikes, flickering lights, and unexplained shadows on camera. These anomalies reinforce the perception that the mines are alive with memory and energy, a place where history and spirit coexist. The violent history of Pyoche above ground also contributes to the mine's spectral presence. Gunfights in saloons, shootouts over disputed claims, and mob justice left emotional scars on the community that cannot be fully explained or contained. Others describe a feeling of tension, as if the unresolved conflicts of the past are still playing out among the rocks and shafts. In this sense, the lawless spirits embody not only the miners who died from accidents, but also the restless souls of men who met violent ends in pursuit of fortune and authority. Some visitors have described tactile experiences that defy explanation. Invisible hands brushing against clothing, sudden pushes, and the clanging of tools without visible cause are frequently reported. It is as if the spirits of the miners are asserting their presence, replaying their labor, their disputes, and their desperation in a form that can be felt as well as seen or heard. Explorers often feel compelled to move cautiously and respectfully, understanding that the energy in these mines is potent and easily disturbed. Above ground, the abandoned town of Pyoche also carries echoes of its turbulent past. Old saloons, boarding houses, and stores sometimes exhibit strange phenomena. Doors open and close on their own. Footsteps echo across wooden floors, and shadowy figures can appear in windows or move along deserted streets. Visitors often feel an omnipresent tension, as if the lawless nature of the town has left an indelible mark on the landscape and its people, both living and spectral. Many who explore Pyoche's mines leave small offerings, tokens of respect, or simply move carefully, speaking quietly to acknowledge the past. Coins, stones, or personal items are sometimes left at tunnel entrances or areas associated with fatalities. Locals believe that these gestures help appease the spirits, providing a temporary respite from their restless wandering. Others simply advise visitors to exercise caution and humility, as intrusion without respect can intensify the oppressive and unsettling energy. The hauntings of Pyoche mines are a direct reflection of the town's history, a fusion of ambition, danger, and unresolved human conflict. The voices, shadows, cold spots, and tactile phenomena all serve as reminders that the miners and townspeople of the past did not always meet peaceful ends. Their unresolved disputes, deaths and accidents, and the general lawlessness of the era have left echoes in the tunnels that continue to interact with the living. Silver Peak, Nevada, once thrived as a bustling mining town built on the promise of silver wealth. Nestled among the jagged peaks of the desert, it attracted prospectors, laborers, and dreamers hoping to strike it rich during the boom years of the late 19th century. The town grew quickly, with miners digging deep into the mountains, establishing shafts and tunnels that carried them far beneath the earth. Life above ground was equally chaotic. Saloons, boarding houses, and supply stores sprang up almost overnight to serve the influx of people, creating a town alive with energy, ambition, and competition. But as the mines exhausted their veins of ore and financial backers pulled out, Silver Peak's prosperity crumbled. The town emptied, leaving behind a network of abandoned mines and structures steeped in the echoes of the past. Today, Silver Peak's deserted mines are known not only for their historical significance, but for the paranormal phenomena reported by those who dare to explore their depths. Phenomena that hint at whispers of wealth that never truly departed. The abandoned tunnels of Silver Peak have long been a destination for ghost hunters and curious explorers. Many report that the moment they descend into the mines, the air grows heavy and charged with a strange energy. There is often a sense that the mines themselves remember the lives and labor that once filled them. Faint, whispering voices are commonly heard, often just at the edge of perception, echoing through the narrow passages. Some say these whispers are conversations from the past, miners arguing over claims, shouting warnings of collapsing rock, or whispering encouragement to one another during long, grueling shifts. Others claim the whispers are more personal, almost like private thoughts carried forward in time, fleeting fragments of hope, fear, or regret. One of the most frequently reported phenomena in Silver Peak mines is the faint sound of singing. Explorers describe it as low, melodic, sometimes solemn, sometimes eerily cheerful, as if miners were singing to themselves during moments of hard work or to pass the long, dark hours underground. The singing often fades in and out, drifting through tunnels with no apparent source. Investigators suggest that this could be a residual echo of the miners' attempts to maintain morale in harsh conditions. Their voices preserved in the very walls of the mine, eternally replaying the labor and struggle of the past. Shadowy figures are also a common feature of the Silver Peak haunting. Visitors report seeing vague silhouettes at the periphery of their vision, moving just beyond the beam of a flashlight or disappearing around a corner. Some figures appear to be climbing ladders, carrying tools, or inspecting rock faces, performing tasks that mirror the labor of the miners who once worked there. Others are less distinct, appearing as fleeting movements or dark smudges that vanish when approached directly. Many explorers describe a sensation of being watched, an invisible presence following them through the tunnels, creating a tension that lingers even after leaving the mines. The smell of smoke is another curious aspect of the Silver Peak hauntings. Some visitors report sudden wafts of wood smoke, reminiscent of fires that would have been used to cook meals, provide light, or keep miners warm during long shifts underground. The smell is often accompanied by whispers or shadowy movements, enhancing the eerie impression that the past is somehow replaying itself. Paranormal investigators note that the combination of auditory, olfactory, and visual phenomena creates a multidimensional sense of presence, as if the miner spirits are not merely echoes, but interactive remnants of history that engage the living senses. The architecture and layout of the mines contribute to the haunting. Narrow shafts, deep tunnels, and wooden supports create acoustics that amplify sound, making footsteps, tools, and whispers carry far beyond their physical source. Some tunnels are prone to sudden drafts, unexplained shifts in temperature, or the subtle feeling of pressure in the chest. Many paranormal teams have recorded EMF spikes, static on audio devices, or shadowy figures on camera in these sections. These occurrences seem concentrated in areas known historically for accidents or intense labor, suggesting a connection between past trauma and the current manifestations. Above ground, Silver Peak's deserted townscape also plays a role in the eerie atmosphere. Empty cabins, collapsed boarding houses, and abandoned saloons seem to hold the memory of past life. Visitors report footsteps on creaking floors, doors opening or closing without cause, and the faint sound of conversation drifting across empty streets. Shadowy figures occasionally appear in windows or along deserted alleys, vanishing when approached. Even in daylight, the weight of history is palpable, as if the energy of ambition, hardship, and tragedy has seeped into the structures themselves. Many visitors leave small tokens in the mines, coins, stones, or personal mementos as gestures of respect to the spirits who linger. Some claim that doing so reduces the intensity of paranormal activity, creating a sense of temporary peace or acknowledgement. Others simply move cautiously and quietly, aware that disturbance or disrespect may provoke more intense manifestations. The combination of caution and reverence is a common approach among those who explore Silver Peak today. The hauntings of Silver Peak mines are deeply tied to the town's history of boom and bust. Wealth was sought relentlessly, sometimes at the cost of safety and human life. The miners' struggles, the risks they faced, and the occasional tragedies left impressions that appear to persist in the environment. Whispers, shadows, singing, and ghostly scents all serve as reminders that the miners' labor, hope, and fears were real, and that the echoes of their lives are woven into the very fabric of the abandoned mines. Manhattan, Nevada, is a quiet desert town today, but its history is carved deep into the rugged hills surrounding it. In the late 1800s, prospectors flocked to the area in search of gold and silver, transforming the region into a hub of frantic activity. Mines were dug deep into the mountains, narrow shafts branching into labyrinthine tunnels that promised wealth but delivered danger. Life in these mines was unforgiving. Collapses, cavines, and toxic gas claimed lives regularly, while disease and malnutrition took their toll above ground. The miners who survived carried stories of fear, exhaustion, and occasional triumph, but many died alone in the darkness of the shafts. Today, those long-abandoned mines are said to be haunted by the spirits of the miners who never left, earning Manhattan Mines a reputation as one of Nevada's most chilling paranormal sites. Visitors to Manhattan Mines often report a profound sense of unease upon approaching the old shafts. The desert air grows still, heavy with an unseen presence, and even in broad daylight, the hills seem to hold their breath. Descending into the mines, explorers describe an immediate shift in atmosphere. The air feels colder, denser, and charged with unseen energy. Many claim to hear faint sounds, the clinking of pickaxes, the scrape of shovels against rock, or distant footsteps echoing in empty tunnels. These noises often seem to originate from deep within the shafts, where no living soul could be present. Paranormal investigators suggest that the sounds are echoes of the miners' labor, residual energy trapped in the stone, endlessly replaying the work of those long gone. Among the most commonly reported phenomena are the phantom voices. Visitors describe hearing names whispered in the darkness, calls of miners seeking companions, or fragments of conversation frozen in time. Some claim that these voices can be startlingly personal, seeming to address individuals directly, while others appear as disembodied arguments or hurried instructions related to mining work. The effect is disorienting, especially in the narrow, winding passages of the mines, where sound carries in unpredictable ways. Explorers often pause mid-step, straining to locate the source, only for the voices to vanish, leaving a heavy silence in their wake. Shadowy figures are also a frequent feature of the hauntings. Witnesses describe fleeting silhouettes moving at the edges of their vision, figures bending over unseen tools, or climbing ladders in a manner that mimics the routines of the miners' labor. These apparitions are rarely fully formed. They appear as dark outlines that vanish when approached, yet their presence is undeniable. Some explorers have reported glimpsing glowing eyes in the darkness, staring from the end of a tunnel before disappearing completely. These moments leave a lingering impression, a combination of fear and fascination, as if the past is asserting itself in the present. The architecture of the mines amplifies the eerie experiences. Narrow shafts, wooden supports, and unstable rock formations create acoustics that carry sound in unusual ways. Footsteps echo from corners that do not exist, and the faint clink of tools can appear to follow visitors, moving in rhythms that mimic human activity. Cold drafts appear suddenly, sometimes in areas where no airflow is possible, adding to the sense that unseen presences are guiding, observing, or warning those who enter. Paranormal investigators often report EMF fluctuations, unexplained orbs on camera, and sudden temperature drops, all concentrated in the deeper, more dangerous sections of the tunnels. Above ground, the remains of Manhattan itself hold traces of the miners' presence. Abandoned cabins, collapsed supply buildings, and rusted equipment are often reported to host activity. Visitors have claimed to hear doors creak open, footsteps on wooden floors, and muffled voices drifting through empty streets. Shadowy figures are sometimes glimpsed in windows, moving along alleys or standing motionless in deserted yards. Even in daylight, the sense of the miner's lingering energy is palpable, as if the desert itself holds on to the memory of those who sought fortune and sometimes paid the ultimate price. Some explorers leave offerings or tokens at the entrances to the mines, gestures of respect meant to acknowledge the miner's struggles and misfortune. Small coins, stones, or personal items are often left in shafts or near collapsed sections. Many claim that such gestures reduce the intensity of paranormal manifestations, creating brief moments of calm or allowing investigators to observe without interference. Others move quietly and deliberately, understanding that any disturbance can provoke stronger reactions, such as louder noises, sudden shadows, or the sensation of being touched by invisible hands. The hauntings at Manhattan mines are deeply entwined with the history of the area. The miners' labor, ambition, and frequent suffering left physical and emotional imprints that some believe cannot fade. Cave-ins, accidents, and long hours in darkness created conditions for tragedy, and the spirits of those lost appear to linger, replaying their final moments or simply remaining tethered to the environment they knew best. The whispers, shadows, glowing eyes, and phantom sounds all reflect a past that refuses to stay buried, merging history with the supernatural in a way that is both haunting and compelling. Paiute, Nevada, a remote desert town, is home to a collection of old mining shafts that whisper stories of ambition, toil, and tragedy. During the height of the silver and gold rushes in the late 19th century, Paiute's mines drew men eager to make their fortunes. The promise of wealth was intoxicating, and the work, though grueling and dangerous, was a path many took to escape poverty or build a legacy. The desert's harsh climate compounded the miners' struggles, and underground conditions were brutal. Narrow shafts, unstable rock, and inadequate ventilation made every day a gamble, and countless miners paid the ultimate price when tunnels collapsed or accidents occurred. Many of those who perished were never recovered, leaving their spirits trapped in the labyrinthine shafts, the forgotten ones of Paiute mines. Visitors to Paiute mines often describe an immediate sensation of heaviness upon entering the old tunnels. The air feels dense, as though the weight of past labor and death has settled into the shafts. Even on hot desert days, the temperature inside the mines drops sharply, creating a chilling effect that seems to follow explorers as they move deeper underground. Many report the sudden onset of cold drafts, the kind that defy explanation, sometimes accompanied by a subtle pressure on the chest or a feeling of being watched. Paranormal investigators have noted that these sensations are concentrated near sections of the mines known historically for collapses or fatalities, suggesting a lingering presence tied to the tragic events of the past. Auditory phenomena are a central aspect of Paiute's haunting. Investigators and visitors frequently report faint cries echoing through the tunnels, whispers calling out names, and even the sound of chains rattling across stone floors. These sounds often appear and vanish without warning, creating a sense of disorientation and unease. Some explorers describe hearing footsteps following them through passages that are empty, only to stop when they turn to look. The noises are not random. They carry a rhythm and intent, as if replaying moments of fear, desperation, and labor that occurred decades or even centuries ago. Many who enter the mines note a profound emotional weight, an almost tangible despair that seems to emanate from the shafts themselves. Shadowy figures are frequently reported in Paiute mines. These forms often vanish when approached, leaving behind only the impression that someone or something had been there moments before. Some explorers claim to have seen glowing eyes in deep recesses, staring from tunnels where no living creature could exist. These visions are brief but intense, leaving witnesses with a lingering sense that the miner spirits are aware of their presence and watching their every step. The mine's design and structure amplify the haunting experiences. Narrow, Twisting shafts carry sound in unpredictable ways, so that a whisper can echo far beyond its source. Wooden supports creak and groan, sometimes in rhythm with the imagined movement of unseen figures. Tools left behind, long abandoned, occasionally appear to shift on their own, sliding or clanging in ways that defy gravity or explanation. Some investigators have documented EMF spikes and unexplained shadows on camera, often in areas corresponding with historical incidents, such as collapses or fatal accidents. These manifestations create the sensation that the minds are alive with memory, holding on to the energy of those who suffered and never left. Above ground, Paiute's abandoned structures reinforce the eerie atmosphere. Old cabins, supply depots, and boarding houses are often silent, yet visitors report hearing doors creak open, footsteps along empty corridors, and muffled voices drifting from nowhere. Shadowy figures can appear in windows or along deserted streets, vanishing when approached. Even the desert wind seems to carry whispers, faint echoes of miners' conversations, laughter, or cries for help. The environment as a whole feels saturated with memory, as though the town itself refuses to let the past fade. Some visitors leave small offerings, stones, coins, or personal mementos near mine entrances or locations associated with accidents. Many claim that this acknowledgement reduces the intensity of paranormal activity, creating brief periods of calm or allowing investigators to document phenomena more safely. Others proceed quietly, aware that any disturbance may provoke stronger manifestations, such as louder cries, sudden shadows, or the sensation of unseen hands brushing past. Respect and caution are common practices among those who seek to explore Paiute mines safely. The spirits in Paiute are not merely echoes of labor, but are entwined with the fear, struggle, and unresolved death that occurred underground. Collapses trapped men in the dark, leaving them to perish alone, their voices and final moments embedded in the stone. These forgotten ones seem to linger, replaying the moments of terror and endurance, sometimes interacting with those who entered their domain. The chains rattling, the footsteps echoing, and the whispered names are all reminders of a past that refuses to remain silent. A history of human ambition, fragility, and loss. Paranormal investigators, historians, and adventurous travelers continue to venture into Paiute mines, drawn by the promise of a connection to the past and the spectral activity that persists. The mines are not simply abandoned shafts. They are memorials to the lives and deaths of those who once labored in the harsh desert. Their stories etched into every tunnel, shaft, and support beam. To step inside is to feel the weight of history pressing in from all sides, to hear the cries and whispers of the forgotten ones, and to sense the persistent presence of spirits who never escaped the mines that claimed them. Ely, Nevada, is a town whose history is deeply intertwined with the silver and copper mines that shaped the region and the railroads that connected it to the rest of the American West. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, miners poured into Ely to extract the rich veins of ore that lay beneath the arid desert hills. The work was brutal, the conditions perilous, and the labor relentless. Many miners lived in makeshift camps near the shafts, enduring harsh winters, oppressive heat, and a constant threat of cave-ins. As the mines expanded, a network of railroad lines was constructed to transport ore to distant smelters, creating a lifeline for industry, but also a perilous environment where accidents were frequent and deaths all too common. Ely's mines and railroads are now largely abandoned, yet they are haunted by the memories of those who worked and perished there, earning them a chilling reputation as the home of the ghosts of the railroad. Visitors to Ely's old mines often report a sudden drop in temperature upon entering the tunnels, accompanied by an almost tangible weight pressing down, as if the labor and suffering of the miners still linger in the stone. The air is heavy with dust and the remnants of smoke from old lanterns, creating an atmosphere that feels charged with energy. Many describe the sensation of being watched, even in tunnels where no other human presence exists. Cold drafts move unpredictably, sometimes following explorers down narrow shafts, while shadows flicker at the edges of vision, disappearing when looked at directly. The tunnels themselves seem to hold memory, replaying the events of the past in subtle, unsettling ways. One of the most striking phenomena reported in Ely mines is the combination of auditory experiences tied to both the mines and the railroad. Visitors often hear faint train whistles echoing through the tunnels, long after the rails have fallen into disuse. Some explorers report the clatter of phantom tools striking rock or the scrape of carts along old tracks, a rhythmic reminder of the grueling labor that defined the miners' lives. The combination of sound and silence creates a haunting auditory landscape that unsettles even the most experienced investigators. Shadowy figures are another hallmark of the Ely mines' hauntings. Witnesses describe fleeting silhouettes moving along abandoned tracks, bending over unseen tools, or navigating narrow corridors as if performing tasks that have been repeated countless times. These apparitions rarely take solid form. They appear at the edge of vision, flickering in and out of existence, and sometimes seem to observe those who explore the tunnels. Some claim to see figures in miners' clothing, covered in dust, their movements methodical and deliberate, as if the work they once performed is never ending. Others have reported glowing eyes in the darkness, staring silently from tunnel entrances before vanishing. The structure of the mines and rail lines themselves contributes to the eerie experiences. Narrow shafts and long winding tunnels create unusual acoustics, amplifying distant sounds and making footsteps, whispers, and clanging tools appear to come from multiple directions at once. Sudden gusts of cold air occur in areas with no ventilation, and EMF readings sometimes spike inexplicably. Paranormal investigators often find that the most active areas correspond to sections of the mines where fatal accidents were historically recorded, suggesting that tragedy left a lingering imprint on the environment. Even outside the mines, along the overgrown rail beds and abandoned platforms, visitors report footsteps on empty wooden tracks, the distant hiss of phantom trains, and the sense of being followed by unseen presences. Ely's abandoned mining camps and railroad stations also carry echoes of the past. Collapsed buildings, rusting equipment, and dilapidated cabins appear haunted by the miners who once lived and worked there. Doors creak open without cause, faint voices drift across empty streets, and shadowy figures can appear at windows or along deserted platforms. Explorers frequently describe the sensation of being part of an invisible audience, witnessing the reenactment of lives filled with labor, conflict, and often sudden death. Some visitors choose to leave small tokens at the entrances to the mines or along the railroad tracks, coins, stones, or personal mementos as gestures of respect toward the spirits who linger. Many claim that these offerings help reduce the intensity of paranormal activity, allowing for safer exploration or more manageable encounters with the spectral presences. Others proceed cautiously and quietly, aware that sudden movements, loud noises, or disrespect may provoke stronger manifestations, such as louder moans, increased cold, or the appearance of multiple shadowy figures. The hauntings of Ely mines are inseparable from the history of the town itself. The miners' labor, the dangers they faced underground, and the tragedies that befell many of them created an emotional and physical imprint that appears to persist. Phantom pickaxes, ghostly footsteps, spectral moans, and distant train whistles all serve as reminders that the past refuses to remain buried. The spirits of the miners seem tethered to the tunnels and tracks, endlessly replaying the work and suffering that defined their lives. Today, Ely attracts historians, adventurers, and paranormal enthusiasts, drawn both by the historical significance of its mines and the supernatural experiences they offer. The tunnels are more than abandoned shafts. They are memorials to lives cut short by accidents, exhaustion, and hardship. Visitors who step into the mines encounter history in a visceral way, hearing the cries and footsteps of the forgotten ones, seeing shadowy figures moving among the rails, and sensing the presence of those who were never rescued or remembered. Gold Mountain, Nevada, rises starkly from the desert landscape, its rugged peaks hiding the remnants of once thriving gold mines. During the height of the gold rush in the late 19th century, the area drew fortune seekers from across the country, all eager to stake a claim and extract wealth from the earth. Miners worked long, grueling hours in narrow shafts, carrying heavy loads of rock and ore, while facing constant dangers such as collapses, gas pockets, and disputes with fellow workers. The combination of harsh working conditions, isolation, and lawlessness meant that many miners never returned from the depths of the mountain. Over time, these losses gave Gold Mountain a reputation as a place where the dead did not remain silent. And today, the abandoned mines are said to be haunted by the lost echoes of those who perished or disappeared. Visitors to Gold Mountain mines often speak of an immediate change in the air as they approach the abandoned shafts. The desert sun seems unable to penetrate the shadowed entrances, and a sense of stillness envelops the landscape. Those who venture inside describe a chilling atmosphere, where the temperature drops sharply and an invisible weight presses down on the chest. As though the collective despair of the miners has soaked into the very stone, many explorers report the sensation of being observed, with shadows flitting at the edges of vision or glimpses of movement disappearing when they turn to look. The mines themselves seem to retain memory, a silent recording of the work, struggles, and tragedies that occurred long ago. Auditory phenomena are among the most persistent reports from Gold Mountain. Visitors frequently hear faint laughter, often eerie and hollow, as if echoing from a time when miners sought brief relief from exhaustion or danger. Whispering voices are also common, sometimes calling out names or issuing warnings that are almost intelligible. The combination of sounds creates an unsettling experience, as if the walls of the mine are replaying fragments of daily life, arguments, and private moments from decades past. Some explorers report hearing the rhythmic strike of pickaxes against rock, accompanied by the shuffling of boots and the dragging of tools. Even when the tunnels are empty, paranormal investigators suggest that these are residual echoes of labor, endlessly replaying the routines of miners who vanished or died within the shafts. Shadowy figures appear frequently to those exploring Gold Mountain mines. Witnesses describe fleeting silhouettes moving along the dark tunnels, bending over tools, climbing ladders, or walking the mine floors as though performing repetitive tasks. These figures rarely manifest fully. They appear at the periphery of vision and vanish when directly approached. Some have reported seeing spectral miners carrying lanterns, their forms faintly illuminated in the darkness, or glimpsing glowing eyes watching from deep within the tunnels. These manifestations often evoke a profound sense of unease, a feeling that the spirits are not simply echoes but conscious presences, trapped in the spaces where they once labored. The mine's structural design amplifies these paranormal experiences. Narrow shafts, wooden supports, and twisting corridors carry sound in unpredictable ways, so that footsteps, whispers, and the clinking of tools echo unnaturally. Sudden drafts appear in sections with no apparent airflow, and unexplained drops in temperature are common. Paranormal teams frequently record EMF spikes and anomalies on audio or video equipment, particularly in areas where accidents or disputes were historically documented. Even sections of the mines above ground, such as collapsed cabins or rusted equipment, have been reported to host paranormal activity, with doors creaking, faint voices drifting across empty spaces, and shadowy figures glimpsed through broken windows. Many who visit Gold Mountain mines leave small tokens as gestures of respect to the spirits that linger. Coins, stones, or other personal items are placed near mine entrances or in areas associated with accidents. Some claim that these offerings ease the intensity of paranormal occurrences, providing brief moments of calm or allowing visitors to explore with less interference. Others proceed quietly and deliberately, moving with caution to avoid provoking the spirits, who may respond with louder noises, stronger cold spots, or more pronounced apparitions. The combination of reverence and careful observation is a common approach for those seeking to navigate the mines safely while acknowledging the lingering presence of the lost echoes. The hauntings of Gold Mountain are inseparable from its violent and treacherous history. Many miners vanished during disputes, collapses, or accidents that left no survivors. Their labor, hopes, and fears were intense, and the unfinished routines of their daily work seem to have imprinted themselves on the environment. The laughter, whispers, and spectral figures are manifestations of that enduring presence, a reminder that some stories never truly end, and that the dead may continue to act out their lives in a loop of memory and energy. Today, Gold Mountain draws historians, adventurers, and paranormal enthusiasts eager to witness the strange activity firsthand. The mines are not merely relics of economic ambition. They are monuments to human toil, risk, and tragedy. Explorers report hearing the echoes of pickaxes, witnessing shadowy miners, and sensing the weight of lives cut short. The lost echoes are a constant reminder that the miners who disappeared, whether in accidents or disputes, remain part of the mountain, replaying their final moments and endless labor in spectral form. Tonopah, Nevada, sits in the heart of the desert, a town whose fortunes were built on the promise of silver and gold. In the early 1900s, prospectors flocked to the area, digging deep into the earth to extract the precious ores that would sustain a growing industry. The work was perilous, the conditions unforgiving, and the miners were constantly at the mercy of collapses, toxic gases, and accidents that often claimed lives. Over time, the mines surrounding Tonopah became notorious not only for their economic significance but also for the dangers that lurked beneath the surface. Today, these historic mines are said to be haunted by the uneasy spirits of miners who perished in the shafts, creating an environment where the echoes of labor, fear, and tragedy remain vivid. Visitors approaching the Tonopah mines often describe an immediate sense of foreboding. The entrances to the old shafts are dark and silent, yet the air feels thick, almost heavy, as though the weight of past events lingers just beyond perception. Even on hot desert days, the temperature drops sharply near the tunnels, a cold that seems to seep into the bones of anyone who ventures too close. Many explorers report a feeling of being watched, as though unseen eyes follow them along narrow paths and unstable platforms. These sensations are often accompanied by a subtle pressure on the chest or the hair on the back of the neck, standing on end. Signs that the past is not entirely gone, but present in an almost tangible way. Auditory phenomena are among the most frequently reported signs of the Tonopah mines haunting. Witnesses often hear the sound of tools striking rock, the rhythmic clanging of picks, or the distant scrape of carts along the mine floors. These sounds are frequently described as unnervingly precise, mimicking the repetitive labor of miners long deceased. Whispered voices are common, sometimes calling out names, giving instructions, or repeating fragments of conversations that seem frozen in time. Some visitors report hearing sudden shouts or cries, echoing through tunnels that are otherwise completely deserted. The combination of sounds, mechanical, human, and spectral, creates a haunting auditory landscape that reinforces the sense that the miners' spirits remain tethered to the shafts they once worked. Shadowy figures are another hallmark of Tonopah's haunted mines. Witnesses describe fleeting silhouettes at the edges of their vision, figures bending over tools, climbing ladders, or simply standing motionless in the darkness. These apparitions vanish when approached, yet their presence is unmistakable. Some explorers have reported seeing figures in miners' clothing, covered in dust and soot, carrying lanterns, or moving as if engaged in the work of extracting, or others speak of glowing eyes, staring silently from the depths of tunnels before fading into darkness. These visual phenomena often coincide with cold spots, unusual drafts, or the sound of footsteps, suggesting a direct connection between the apparitions and the residual energy of the mines. The structure and layout of the Tonopah mines amplify the eerie experiences. Narrow tunnels, unstable wooden supports, and twisting corridors carry sound in unpredictable ways, making it difficult to discern the origin of footsteps or clanging tools. Cold drafts appear in areas with no apparent airflow, and sudden temperature fluctuations are common, creating an almost otherworldly atmosphere. Paranormal investigators have frequently documented EMF spikes, unexplained orbs on video, and shadow anomalies in regions historically associated with fatal accidents or mining disputes. Even areas outside the mines, such as abandoned rail tracks, dilapidated cabins, and old supply sheds, exhibit unusual activity. from unexplained noises to fleeting figures glimpsed at windows or along empty streets. Many visitors to Tonopah mines leave small offerings as tokens of respect for the spirits they believe linger. Coins, stones, or other personal items are often placed near tunnel entrances or in areas known for accidents. Some claim that these gestures ease the intensity of paranormal activity, allowing for safer exploration or more controlled observation. Others approach quietly and deliberately, aware that sudden movements or loud sounds may provoke stronger manifestations, such as more pronounced apparitions, louder clanging, or sharper cold spots. These practices reflect a recognition of the enduring presence of miners who were lost to the tunnels and the dangers they faced. The hauntings at Tonopah are inseparable from the region's violent and perilous mining history. Many miners died in cave-ins, machinery accidents, or from the harsh conditions underground. Their labor, fear, and untimely deaths left a profound imprint on the environment, one that manifests in echoes, shadows, and sensations that cannot be explained by modern science alone. Phantom footsteps, whispered names, and fleeting figures serve as reminders that the past continues to inhabit these spaces, replaying moments of both toil and tragedy for anyone who dares to enter. Today, Tonopah attracts adventurers, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts, drawn by the combination of historical significance and supernatural intrigue. The mines are more than abandoned shafts. They are living memorials to the men who worked and died in pursuit of wealth. Visitors report hearing the rhythmic strike of picks, glimpsing shadowy figures moving along the tunnels, and feeling the cold presence of those who were trapped or lost to the mines. The uneasy spirits, it seems, continued to inhabit the spaces where life and death intersected in a harsh desert landscape. Garbage, Nevada, lies deep within the northern desert, a remote region marked by rugged mountains and isolated valleys. In the early 20th century, the discovery of gold and silver veins drew hopeful miners to this harsh landscape. The work was unforgiving. Narrow tunnels, unstable rock, and brutal weather made life underground perilous. Many miners endured long hours in the dim glow of lanterns, hauling or shoring up tunnels, and navigating labyrinthine shafts where a single misstep could mean death. Over time, the mines of Garbage became notorious for accidents, disappearances, and unexplained tragedies. Visitors to the Garbage mines often notice an immediate shift in atmosphere upon approaching the old shafts. The desert's heat seems to dissipate near the entrances, replaced by sudden chills that seep into the bones. The air carries a heavy stillness, punctuated by faint whispers that appear to come from within the tunnels. Some explorers report the feeling of unseen eyes tracking their movements, a pressure on the chest, or a tingling sensation across their skin. Even on sunny days, shadowy patches and dim recesses inside the shafts make it feel as though the past is alive, waiting for anyone daring enough to enter. Auditory phenomena are among the most commonly reported experiences in the Garbage mines. Visitors frequently hear faint cries, often resembling miners calling out in fear or distress, echoing through passages where no human voice could reach. The clinking of tools striking rock, the dragging of ore carts, and the rhythmic shuffle of boots are also reported, even though the tunnels are long abandoned. Whispered names or fragments of conversation seem to carry a haunting intent, as if replaying moments frozen in time. Some explorers describe sudden, sharp shouts or moans that reverberate through tunnels with no apparent source, creating an unsettling sense that the miners' spirits are trapped in perpetual labor or panic. Visual phenomena add to the haunting reputation of Garbage mines. Shadowy figures are often glimpsed at the edges of vision, appearing as miners hunched over tools, climbing ladders, or standing motionless in deep recesses. These figures rarely manifest fully and vanish when directly approached, yet their presence is unmistakable. Some witnesses describe glowing eyes, faintly illuminated faces, or lantern-like lights that flicker deep within the tunnels. These apparitions seem tethered to specific areas, especially near shafts associated with accidents or disappearances, suggesting a direct link between the tragic past and the haunting experiences of the present. The mine's layout contributes to the eerie sensations reported by visitors. Narrow, winding tunnels, unstable wooden supports, and deep shadowed recesses create unusual acoustics, amplifying faint noises and carrying them in unpredictable ways. Sudden drafts and unexplained temperature fluctuations often accompany sightings or auditory phenomena, enhancing the sense that the tunnels themselves are alive with memory. Paranormal investigators frequently document EMF spikes, orbs, and shadow anomalies, often in areas with historical records of fatal accidents or lost miners. Even outside the tunnels, along abandoned access roads and collapsed structures, visitors report hearing footsteps, creaking doors, and faint whispers that seem to drift through the desert wind. Many who explore the garbage mines leave small offerings as tokens of respect to the spirits believed to linger. Coins, stones, or personal mementos are placed near tunnel entrances or in areas tied to accidents. Some claim that these gestures reduce the intensity of paranormal activity, providing a brief sense of calm or allowing more controlled observation of the unexplained phenomena. Others move quietly and deliberately, aware that loud movements or disruptions may provoke stronger manifestations, such as louder cries, more vivid shadows, or sudden cold spots. Respectful conduct appears to be crucial in navigating the haunted landscape safely. The hauntings at garbage mines are inseparable from the violent and treacherous history of the region. Many miners disappeared during collapses, disputes, or accidents that left no survivors. Their labor, fear, and untimely deaths created a profound imprint on the tunnels, one that manifests as residual energy and spectral phenomena. Phantom footsteps, faint moans, and shadowy figures all serve as reminders that the past continues to inhabit the mines, replaying moments of danger, labor, and despair for those who enter. Today, garbage attracts adventurers, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts, drawn by the blend of history and supernatural intrigue. The mines are more than abandoned shafts. They are memorials to lives cut short in pursuit of fortune. Visitors frequently report hearing the rhythmic strike of pickaxes, glimpsing shadowy figures moving along tunnels, and feeling cold drafts that appear without explanation. The uneasy spirits of miners who vanished or died underground seem to remain tethered to the shafts, endlessly replaying their final moments and ensuring that the stories of garbage's lost laborers endure. Wildlight, Nevada, is a desolate ghost town perched on the edge of the Mojave Desert, a place where the ruins of a once booming gold rush era still stand as silent monuments to ambition, greed, and human suffering. At the height of its prosperity in the early 1900s, miners poured into the surrounding hills. Drawn by the promise of wealth buried deep beneath the arid earth, gold veins lured them into treacherous shafts and narrow tunnels, where accidents, collapses, and exhaustion claimed countless lives. Today, the rhyolite gold mines are abandoned, yet their history of hardship and death continues to resonate in ways both eerie and inexplicable. Paranormal accounts suggest that the spirits of those who perished during the boom years have never truly left, leaving behind restless echoes that haunt the tunnels and the desert beyond. Visitors to the rhyolite mines often describe an immediate shift in atmosphere when approaching the old shafts. The desert air, hot and dry, gives way to a sudden, inexplicable chill near the entrances, accompanied by a feeling of heaviness, as though the ground itself carries the memory of the miners' labor and suffering. Explorers frequently report the sensation of being watched, their movements shadowed by unseen presences that seem to flit just beyond the edge of vision. Even in broad daylight, the tunnels appear unnaturally dark, and the silence is punctuated by faint sounds that defy explanation, as if the miners' routines and misfortunes are replayed endlessly in the stone. Auditory phenomena are among the most common and unsettling experiences reported in rhyolite's mines. Visitors often hear the sound of phantom footsteps echoing through the tunnels, as if miners are still moving about their workstations. The clanging of pickaxes against rock, the scraping of carts along narrow mine floors, and the rhythmic shuffle of boots are also frequently reported, though no living person is present. Whispered voices occasionally drift from the depths, calling names or issuing warnings that are barely intelligible. Some explorers describe sudden cries of fear or pain, echoing through tunnels that have long been deserted, creating the impression that the miners' spirits are trapped in an eternal cycle of labor, danger, and unrest. Visual phenomena add to the haunting reputation of rhyolite mines. Shadowy figures are often glimpsed moving along tunnel walls, bending over invisible tools, or walking the mine floors as if engaged in tasks that have long ceased. These figures rarely manifest fully, appearing only at the periphery of vision and vanishing when approached. Some witnesses report faintly illuminated shapes, as though lanterns are being carried by miners long gone. Others have seen glowing eyes or indistinct silhouettes lurking near shafts or among collapsed timbers. These apparitions often appear in the areas historically linked to accidents or deaths, suggesting a connection between tragedy and the lingering spirits. The mines themselves enhance the eerie experiences. Narrow shafts, twisting tunnels, and unstable wooden supports create unusual acoustics, amplifying faint sounds and making it difficult to determine the source of footsteps, whispers, or clanging. Sudden cold drafts often appear in sections with no apparent airflow, and temperature fluctuations are common, adding to the sense that the tunnels are alive with memory. Paranormal investigators frequently document electromagnetic anomalies, shadow figures on video, and unexplained orbs, often concentrated in zones associated with historic accidents or collapsed shafts. Even above ground, along abandoned rail lines, dilapidated buildings, and rusted mining equipment, visitors report strange noises, fleeting shadows, and the feeling of unseen presences watching from the ruins. Many who explore rhyolite's mines leave small tokens or offerings as signs of respect. Coins, stones, or other objects are placed at tunnel entrances or in locations tied to past accidents. Some claim that these gestures help reduce the intensity of paranormal activity, allowing safer exploration or a clearer observation of the unexplained phenomena. Others move cautiously and quietly, aware that sudden noise or disruption may provoke stronger manifestations. Louder footsteps, more vivid shadows, or sharper cold spots. The idea of respecting the lingering spirits underscores the enduring presence of the miners who never returned. The hauntings of rhyolite gold mines are deeply rooted in the history of the town and its surrounding hills. Many miners died in collapses, machinery accidents, or from exhaustion, leaving no witnesses to tell their stories. Their lives, labor, and fear seem to have left an imprint on the environment, manifesting as residual energy that continues to affect anyone who enters the tunnels. Phantom footsteps, whispered names, and fleeting figures are not merely echoes. They are reminders that the past persists in these abandoned shafts, replaying moments of work, struggle, and misfortune for anyone who ventures too far. Today, rhyolite attracts historians, explorers, and paranormal enthusiasts. Drawn both by its rich history and its supernatural reputation, the mines are more than relics of a bygone economic boom. They are living memorials to lives cut short, where the boundary between the past and present feels thin. Visitors report hearing the rhythmic strike of tools, glimpsing shadowy figures among debris, and sensing the heavy presence of miners unwilling to leave the spaces where they lived, labored, and died. Pioche, Nevada, rests in the rugged hills of Lincoln County, a town whose history is steeped in silver mining, lawlessness, and human ambition. During the late 1800s, the region became a hub for silver prospectors, drawing miners willing to risk life and limb for wealth buried beneath the earth. The mines of Pioche were notorious for their dangerous conditions. Narrow tunnels, unstable rock formations, and primitive tools made everyday underground a gamble. Many miners died in cave-ins, machinery accidents, or from exhaustion, and their deaths left a lingering impression on the tunnels and the surrounding desert. Over a century later, the Pioche silver mines are considered by many to be haunted, with shadowy figures, inexplicable chills, and echoes of voices that seem to originate from a long-forgotten past. Visitors to the Pioche mines often notice an immediate shift in the air as they approach the entrances. The desert's heat seems to vanish near the mine shafts, replaced by sudden, icy gusts that sweep through narrow corridors. Many explorers report the sensation of unseen eyes tracking their movements, a weight pressing on their chest, or the hair on the back of their neck standing on end. Even in daylight, the tunnels appear unnaturally dark, as if the walls themselves hold the memories of the miners who spent their lives underground. The atmosphere inside these shafts is often described as heavy and oppressive, a tangible reminder that the tragedies of the past are not easily forgotten. Auditory experiences are among the most common reports from the Pioche mines. Visitors frequently hear faint, disembodied conversations, often mimicking the cadence and phrasing of miners from over a century ago. These voices may argue, give instructions, or recount mundane tasks, creating the illusion that the miners' daily routines continue to play out in the tunnels. Phantom footsteps echo along narrow passageways, sometimes accompanied by the clinking of tools, striking rock, or the scrape of carts along wooden tracks. Whispered names, sudden shouts, and distant moans are also reported, producing an eerie soundscape that blurs the line between history and the supernatural. Paranormal investigators suggest that these auditory phenomena are residual echoes of human activity, trapped in the mine walls by the intense energy of fear, labor, and untimely death. Visual manifestations are another hallmark of Pioche's haunted mines. Shadowy figures are often glimpsed at the edge of vision, disappearing when directly approached. Witnesses described apparitions of miners hunched over tools, climbing ladders, or walking the tunnels with deliberate movements. Some report seeing glowing eyes peering from dark recesses, faint silhouettes carrying lanterns, or the flicker of a figure disappearing behind a collapsed shaft. These spectral forms often appear in areas associated with accidents or fatalities, reinforcing the connection between tragedy and lingering presence. Some explorers claim to see fleeting glimpses of miners dressed in dusty, period clothing, their forms moving with purpose, yet remaining intangible and ghostly. The layout of the Pioche mines enhances the haunting phenomena. Narrow tunnels, twisting corridors, and decaying wooden supports create unusual acoustics, amplifying the smallest noise into something seemingly larger or closer than it is. Sudden drafts, cold spots, and temperature fluctuations appear without explanation, contributing to the impression that the tunnels themselves are alive with memory. Paranormal teams often document electromagnetic anomalies, shadow forms on video, and unexplained orbs in areas linked to historic accidents. Even above ground, along abandoned rail lines, ruined cabins, and old supply depots, visitors report strange sounds, fleeting shadows, and the sense of being observed by entities invisible to the naked eye. Many who venture into the Pioche mines leave small offerings as a mark of respect for the spirits believed to linger. Coins, stones, or other objects are placed near entrances or in sections tied to documented accidents. Some claim these gestures reduce the intensity of paranormal activity, allowing safer exploration or clearer observation of the phenomena. Others move cautiously and deliberately, understanding that sudden loud noises or reckless behavior may provoke stronger manifestations, such as sharper chills, louder footsteps, or more vivid apparitions. This careful approach reflects a recognition of the enduring presence of miners who perished underground and the dangers that once claimed their lives. The hauntings of Pioche silver mines are inseparable from the town's perilous history. The combination of unsafe working conditions, disputes among miners, and frequent accidents created an environment where death was an ever-present companion. The spirits reported today, phantom footsteps, whispered conversations, and shadowy figures are considered by many to be residual energy left behind by those who died violently or disappeared without a trace. Their presence is a testament to the intensity of the miners' labor, fear, and ambitions, replayed endlessly in the tunnels and shafts they once inhabited. Today, Pioche draws historians, adventurers, and paranormal enthusiasts who are eager to explore the mines firsthand. The tunnels are more than relics of a bygone mining era. They are monuments to human toil, danger, and loss. Visitors frequently report hearing the rhythmic strike of tools, witnessing shadowy miners moving along the shafts, and sensing cold, oppressive energy that seems to cling to the walls. The restless spirits appear tethered to the spaces where they lived and labored, unable or unwilling to move on, leaving a lingering imprint that affects anyone who enters. Silver City, Nevada, sits as a silent monument to a once thriving mining town, a place where the pursuit of silver turned dreams into danger and death. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, prospectors flooded the area, digging deep into the desert hills to extract the precious metal that promised wealth beyond imagination. The mines themselves were treacherous. Narrow tunnels, unstable rock formations, and primitive tools meant that every day underground carried the risk of collapse, injury, or death. Many miners perished in accidents, lost in labyrinthine shafts, or succumbed to exhaustion and disease. Today, the Silver City mines are abandoned, but their dark history continues to echo through the tunnels. Paranormal investigators, historians, and curious adventurers alike report strange and unsettling phenomena, suggesting that the spirits of the miners have never truly left. Visitors approaching the Silver City shafts often feel an immediate shift in atmosphere. The desert's dry heat seems to dissipate near the entrances, replaced by sudden, icy gusts that crawl along the tunnels and seep into bones. Many explorers describe an oppressive sensation, as though the weight of history presses down on them, making every step feel heavy and deliberate. The feeling of being watched is common, as though unseen eyes are tracking movements along narrow corridors and shadowed passageways. Even on bright, sunny days, the tunnels appear unnaturally dark, and a silence pervades that is broken only by sounds that seem almost supernatural in origin. Auditory phenomena are among the most frequently reported experiences in Silver City's mines. Investigators often hear the dragging of chains along stone floors, the clatter of unseen tools striking rock, and distant footsteps echoing through tunnels that should be empty. Whispered conversations, sometimes calling names or repeating phrases from over a century ago, seem to drift from the walls themselves. Some explorers report sudden shouts, anguished cries, or the sound of rocks tumbling, though no visible source is present. These auditory experiences create a haunting soundscape, as if the miners' spirits continued to perform the labor they once endured, replaying the repetitive cycles of work and hardship in an endless loop. Visual phenomena further reinforce Silver City's haunted reputation. Shadowy silhouettes are frequently seen at the edge of flashlight beams, moving with purpose, yet vanishing when approached. Some report faintly glowing forms, as if lanterns are being carried by miners long gone. Others have seen fleeting faces or ghostly eyes peering from dark recesses, vanishing the moment they are directly observed. These apparitions often appear near areas with known historical accidents, suggesting that the tragedies of the past remain imprinted on the mines themselves. The structure and layout of the Silver City mines contribute to the eerie experiences. Narrow shafts, twisting tunnels, and deteriorating wooden supports create unusual acoustics that amplify even minor noises, making them sound closer or louder than they are. Sudden drafts and inexplicable drops in temperature appear without reason, often coinciding with sightings or sounds, enhancing the feeling that the tunnels are alive with memories. Paranormal investigators have frequently documented electromagnetic anomalies, orbs on video, and shadow forms in areas associated with fatal accidents, supporting claims that the mines harbor residual energy from past tragedies. Even the buildings above ground, such as abandoned supply sheds, cabins, and old rail lines, have been sites of strange occurrences, including footsteps, flickering shadows, and the sense of being observed by unseen entities. Those who explore the Silver City mines often leave small offerings as a gesture of respect for the spirits believed to linger. Coins, stones, or personal items are placed near tunnel entrances or in sections linked to documented accidents. Some claim these offerings reduce the intensity of paranormal activity, creating a temporary sense of calm and allowing for safer exploration. Others move quietly and deliberately, aware that loud movements or reckless behavior may provoke stronger manifestations, including more pronounced shadows, louder footsteps, or sharper cold spots. Respect and caution appear essential when navigating the haunted shafts. A recognition of the enduring presence of miners who perished underground. The hauntings of Silver City mines are inseparable from the area's violent and perilous mining history. Unsafe working conditions, frequent cave-ins, and disputes among miners created an environment where death was common. The phantom footsteps, whispers, and shadowy figures reported today are believed by many to be residual echoes of the lives lost to these tunnels. A replay of fear, labor, and tragedy frozen in time. The presence of these spirits is a chilling reminder that the miners' struggles and deaths left an enduring mark on the mines themselves. Today, Silver City attracts historians, adventurers, and paranormal enthusiasts drawn by the combination of historical significance and supernatural intrigue. The mines are more than abandoned shafts. They are living memorials to the men and women who labored and perished in pursuit of silver. Visitors report hearing the rhythmic strike of tools, glimpsing shadowy figures moving along the tunnels, and feeling cold drafts that defy explanation. The spirits of the miners seem to linger, tethered to the tunnels and shafts where they lived and died, replaying their final moments in an endless cycle. Ely, Nevada, a small town nestled in the Great Basin, carries a history of silver and copper mining that shaped both its growth and its darker legacy. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, miners poured into the hills surrounding Ely, lured by the promise of wealth buried deep underground. The mines were dangerous and poorly maintained, with narrow shafts, rotting supports, and inadequate ventilation. Accidents were frequent, and disease ran rampant among workers, claiming lives that often went unrecorded. Over time, Ely's mines became known not only for their economic importance, but also for the human suffering they caused. Even today, decades after the shafts were abandoned, visitors and paranormal investigators report experiences suggesting that the spirits of miners continue to linger, trapped by the toil, fear, and tragedy of their past labor. The first thing most visitors notice when approaching Ely's historic mines is a sudden shift in the atmosphere. The desert's dry heat often gives way to an unnatural chill near tunnel entrances. Shadows deepen inexplicably, and the air feels heavy, as if carrying the memories of countless hours spent underground. Many explorers describe the sensation of being watched, as though unseen eyes follow their every movement through the labyrinth of tunnels. Even during daylight, the mines appear darker than their surroundings suggest, and the silence is almost palpable, broken only by sounds that seem to originate from the past. Auditory phenomena are among the most commonly reported occurrences in Ely's mines. Visitors frequently hear the faint sound of hammering on rock, as if miners continue to chisel veins of ore that no longer exist. Distant laughter echoes through the shafts, sometimes cheerful, sometimes manic, leaving explorers unsure whether it belongs to the living or the dead. Cries for help often drift from deep within tunnels, and the scrape of carts or tools across stone floors can be heard when no one is present. Whispered voices, occasionally issuing fragmented instructions or conversations, seem to replay snippets of miners' daily routines, frozen in time by the intensity of fear, labor, and death. Paranormal investigators suggest that these residual echoes are the imprints of powerful energy left behind by those who perished under tragic circumstances. Visual manifestations further deepen the mine's haunted reputation. Shadowy figures are frequently glimpsed at the periphery of vision, crouched over invisible tools or walking slowly along narrow corridors. Many witnesses report seeing faintly illuminated forms, as though lanterns are being carried by miners long gone. Some describe glimpsing workers frozen mid-task, their bodies rigid as if suspended in the moment of their final toil. Others have observed glowing eyes or indistinct silhouettes peering from dark recesses or collapsed tunnels, vanishing when directly approached. These apparitions are often concentrated in areas associated with accidents or deaths, suggesting a strong connection between tragedy and lingering spirits. The structure and layout of the Ely mines amplify the unnerving experiences. Narrow tunnels, twisting passageways, and decaying wooden supports create acoustics that make faint noises sound closer, louder, or more disorienting than they should. Sudden drafts and sharp drops in temperature appear without explanation, further enhancing the sense that the tunnels themselves are alive with memory. Paranormal teams frequently document electromagnetic anomalies, shadow forms, and unexplained orbs in locations tied to historical accidents or fatalities. Even above ground, among abandoned buildings, rusted mining equipment, and old rail lines, visitors report the sensation of being observed, strange sounds, and fleeting shadows. Many who explore Ely's mines leave small offerings as a gesture of respect for the spirits believed to remain. Coins, stones, or personal mementos are placed near tunnel entrances or areas tied to known tragedies. Some claim these offerings reduce the intensity of paranormal activity, creating a temporary sense of calm and allowing clearer observation of unexplained phenomena. Others move quietly and deliberately, understanding that sudden noise or reckless behavior may provoke stronger manifestations, such as louder footsteps, sharper cries, or more vivid shadows. This respectful approach underscores the enduring presence of miners who perished in the shafts, bound to the tunnels where they lived and died. The hauntings of Ely historic mines are inseparable from the perilous work and frequent fatalities that marked the area's mining history. Unsafe conditions, poor infrastructure, and the relentless pursuit of profit created an environment in which death was a constant companion. The phantom hammering, laughter, cries for help, and shadowy figures seen today are considered by many to be residual imprints left by the miners' intense energy, fear, and labor. These echoes serve as a reminder that the past continues to occupy the tunnels, replaying the struggles and tragedies of those who lived and died there. Today, Ely attracts adventurers, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts eager to explore the historic mines firsthand. The shafts are more than abandoned passageways. They are memorials to lives lost in pursuit of silver and copper. Visitors frequently report the rhythmic strike of tools, shadowy miners moving along the tunnels, and the unsettling feeling of cold drafts in areas with no apparent airflow. The spirits appear tethered to the locations where they labored and perished, replaying moments of fear, fatigue, and final toil in a perpetual loop. Goldfield, Nevada, is a ghost town that sits quietly atop hills once alive with the fevered pursuit of gold. In the mid-1800s, miners flocked to the area, digging deep into the earth with rudimentary tools and boundless ambition. Each shaft and tunnel carved with the promise of fortune. The mines, however, were far from safe. Narrow passages, unstable rock formations, and makeshift supports made every day underground a gamble with life itself. Accidents, collapses, and exposure claimed countless miners, leaving a legacy of tragedy that continues to linger. Today, the Goldfield mines are abandoned, yet their history has left an indelible mark. Visitors and paranormal investigators report unsettling phenomena: phantom footsteps, muffled conversations, and eerie cold spots, suggesting that the miners who perished here continue to roam the tunnels and rails, trapped in a spectral cycle of labor and loss. Approaching the old mine entrances, visitors often notice an immediate change in the air. The desert heat fades into a cold, damp chill that seems to seep into the bones. Shadows appear unnaturally dark, stretching along the walls and floors of the mines. Many explorers report the sensation of being watched, as though unseen eyes follow their movements down twisting corridors and past decaying supports. Even in the brightness of day, the mines feel oppressively dark, and the silence is broken only by sounds that cannot be easily explained: soft, shuffling footsteps, distant murmurs, and the clink of tools striking stone. Auditory experiences are among the most persistent phenomena in Goldfield. Visitors often hear faint, ghostly footsteps echoing through the tunnels, sometimes quick and urgent, other times slow and deliberate, as if the miners are moving about their work, Whispered conversations, often fragmented and unintelligible, seem to replay the voices of men discussing their labor, arguing over mining claims, or issuing instructions. Some have heard muffled cries for help, as though miners trapped in collapsed shafts are still calling out across time. Paranormal investigators suggest these auditory echoes may be residual energy, replaying moments of high emotion or trauma long after the miners themselves have passed. Visual manifestations add another layer to the mine's eerie reputation. Shadowy figures are frequently glimpsed at the edge of vision, moving along tunnels or crouched over invisible tools. Many witnesses report seeing miners dressed in period clothing, sometimes carrying lanterns or walking along the old rail tracks that once transported or. These figures are often faint and elusive, disappearing when approached, leaving only the lingering sense that the tunnels are occupied. Some explorers claim to have seen full-bodied apparitions moving deliberately through collapsed or abandoned sections, as if performing the same tasks they did in life, unable to leave the world above. The layout of the mines contributes to the unsettling experiences. Narrow shafts, twisting corridors, and deteriorating wooden supports create unusual acoustics that amplify the smallest noises, making footsteps and tool clinks seem closer or louder than they are. Sudden drafts and inexplicable drops in temperature appear without cause, often coinciding with sightings or sounds, further enhancing the impression that the tunnels are alive with the memories of past labor. Paranormal teams frequently document electromagnetic anomalies, shadow forms on camera, and orbs in areas associated with historical fatalities. Even outside the tunnels, near abandoned equipment, old rail lines, and crumbling buildings, visitors report shadowy figures, fleeting movements, and the sensation of being observed by unseen presences. Those who explore Gold Hill often leave small tokens as gestures of respect to the miners' spirits. Coins, stones, or personal objects are placed at tunnel entrances or near locations linked to historic accidents. Many explorers believe these offerings help ease the intensity of paranormal activity, creating a temporary sense of calm and allowing for safer exploration. Others proceed with caution, aware that loud movements or careless behavior may provoke more pronounced phenomena, such as sharper cold spots, louder footsteps, or clearer apparitions. The respect shown to the mines' unseen inhabitants underscores the enduring presence of miners who perished in the pursuit of wealth. The hauntings of Gold Hill mines are deeply connected to the area's history of labor, greed, and tragedy. Unsafe working conditions, cave-ins, and disputes over claims created an environment where death was a constant companion. The phantom footsteps, whispered conversations, and shadowy figures witnessed today are often seen as residual imprints of the miners' fear, exhaustion, and untimely deaths. These echoes are reminders that the past refuses to stay buried, replaying the miners' experiences for anyone who ventures too far into the tunnels. Today, Gold Hill attracts adventurers, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts drawn to its history and spectral activity. The mines are more than abandoned shafts. They are memorials to lives lost in pursuit of gold, where the echoes of labor, fear, and tragedy persist. Visitors frequently report phantom footsteps along the old rail lines, shadowy miners moving through tunnels, and chilling cold spots that defy explanation. The spirits appear tethered to the places where they lived and died, replaying their final hours in a perpetual cycle of labor and unrest. Rochester, Nevada, sits quietly amid rugged hills, a ghost town with a past built on ambition, risk, and the relentless pursuit of silver and gold. Though never as large as some of the booming mining towns in the region, Rochester's mines were treacherous, drawing miners willing to endure grueling labor for the chance of fortune. The tunnels were narrow, poorly supported, and riddled with hazards. Cave-ins, equipment, accidents, and disease claimed the lives of countless miners, leaving behind a legacy of fear, suffering, and unfinished work. Today, the mines remain abandoned, yet they are far from silent. Visitors, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts frequently report chilling experiences, whispers that seem to emanate from empty shafts. the creak of tools moving on their own, faint laughter that drifts through tunnels, and shadowy figures that vanish when approached. These forgotten echoes suggest that the spirits of miners who perished in Rochester may never have left. Approaching the entrances of Rochester's mines, visitors often notice a sudden shift in the air. The arid heat of the surrounding desert gives way to cold, damp drafts that snake through the tunnels, sending chills down the spine. Shadows stretch unnaturally across walls and floors, and the silence is heavy, broken only by the smallest noises that seem amplified in the confined spaces. Many explorers report the sensation of being watched, as if unseen eyes track every step. Even in daylight, the tunnels exude a darkness that seems unnatural, as though the shadows themselves hold the memories of those who once worked there. Auditory phenomena are among the most frequent and unsettling experiences. Visitors have reported hearing whispers that echo through the shafts, sometimes indistinct, other times seeming to call names or issue commands. The creaking of tools moving across wooden supports or stone floors is commonly reported, even when no one is present. Some witnesses describe faint laughter, ranging from light-hearted to eerily manic, and distant cries for help that seem to originate from deep within the mines. These sounds often coincide with areas historically associated with accidents or fatalities, suggesting a lingering presence tied to tragedy. Paranormal investigators theorize that these auditory echoes may be residual energy snapshots of past events replaying in the environment, trapped by intense emotional or physical trauma. Visual experiences reinforce Rochester's reputation for haunting. Shadowy figures are often glimpsed at the edges of vision, crouched over invisible tools or moving along old rail tracks. Witnesses sometimes report seeing miners dressed in dusty period clothing, hunched over lanterns, or performing repetitive tasks frozen in time. These apparitions often appear near abandoned mining equipment, rusted carts, and collapsed shafts, vanishing when approached. Some explorers have captured fleeting images on cameras or motion sensors, recording forms that disappear before they can be fully examined. The visual phenomena create a sense of a world still inhabited by those who labored and suffered underground, tethered to the tunnels where they lived and died. The mine's layout amplifies the eerie sensations. Narrow corridors, twisting passageways, and decaying wooden supports create acoustics that make minor noises sound unnaturally close or loud. Sudden gusts of cold air or temperature drops appear without explanation, enhancing the impression that the tunnels themselves are alive with memory. Paranormal teams frequently record electromagnetic anomalies, orbs, and shadow forms in areas associated with documented accidents. Even above ground, around the remnants of old cabins or processing equipment and rail lines, visitors report fleeting shadows, footsteps, and the sensation of being observed. These experiences reinforce the idea that Rochester's mines are not merely abandoned, they are active sites of spectral memory. Those exploring the mines often leave small offerings as a sign of respect for the miners' spirits. Coins, stones, or personal objects are placed near tunnel entrances or locations tied to historical accidents. Many believe these gestures help calm the intensity of paranormal activity, allowing for clearer observation and safer exploration. Others move deliberately and quietly, understanding that loud movements or recklessness may provoke stronger manifestations, including louder footsteps, more distinct shadows, or sharper cold spots. Respectful behavior appears to ease the tension and create a temporary sense of connection to the miner's lingering presence. The hauntings of Rochester mines are inseparable from the perilous history of mining in the region. Unsafe working conditions, frequent cave-ins, and the relentless pressure to extract or created an environment where death was commonplace. The whispers, laughter, creaking tools, and shadowy figures reported today are believed to be residual imprints of miners' fear, fatigue, and untimely deaths. These echoes serve as a reminder that the past is never truly gone, replaying the struggles, labor, and tragedies of those who once inhabited the tunnels. Today, Rochester attracts adventurers, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts eager to explore its historic mines. The tunnels are more than abandoned shafts. They are monuments to lives lost in pursuit of silver and gold. Visitors frequently report hearing phantom footsteps, witnessing shadowy figures, and feeling cold, oppressive air where no breeze should exist. The spirits seem tethered to the locations where they labored and died, endlessly replaying their final hours in a spectral loop. The Tonopah Mining District in Nevada, once a bustling center of silver and gold production, now lies mostly abandoned, its hills and valleys scattered with the remnants of a bygone era. During the early 1900s, miners flooded the area, drawn by the promise of fortune hidden beneath the arid desert soil. They worked tirelessly in tunnels and shafts, facing extreme heat, dangerous collapses, and primitive equipment. Accidents were common, and the harsh living conditions took a toll on those who lived and labored here. Deaths in the mines, whether from Caven's disease or exhaustion, left a profound mark on the district. Today, decades after the mines were abandoned, visitors and paranormal investigators report eerie activity, suggesting that the spirits of the workers continue to roam the tunnels, trapped in the labor that once defined their lives. Approaching the Tonopah Mining District, one notices an immediate shift in the atmosphere. The arid desert heat fades into a cooler, almost oppressive air near mine entrances. Shadows deepen unnaturally along the cracked walls and uneven floors, and a sense of silence pervades that is far heavier than mere emptiness should produce. Many visitors report an overwhelming feeling of being watched, as if unseen eyes track every movement through the twisting tunnels and creaking shafts. Even during the bright afternoon, some areas feel unnaturally dark, and the quiet is punctuated only by unexplained sounds that echo unnervingly through narrow corridors. Auditory phenomena are the most frequently reported experiences in the Tonopah Mining District. Whispered voices drift through the shafts, sometimes fragmented conversations, sometimes muffled commands or shouts, as if miners are carrying on their work from decades past. The distant clanging of tools striking rock, the scrape of carts on rails, and even faint laughter have been heard deep underground. Some visitors describe hearing cries for help echoing from collapsed or sealed-off shafts, voices that seem to call out across time. Paranormal investigators suggest that these sounds may be residual energy, trapped impressions of moments of high stress, fear, or tragedy left behind by miners who perished in the course of their work. Visual phenomena further contribute to the district's reputation for hauntings. Shadowy figures appear at the edge of vision, hunched over tools, walking along narrow passageways, or standing near old rail tracks. Witnesses often describe fleeting apparitions of miners in period clothing, sometimes carrying lanterns, sometimes frozen mid. Many of these figures vanish when approached, leaving only the impression that they are tethered to the work they once performed. Some visitors have captured these shadows on cameras, only to find them disappear when viewed directly, reinforcing the feeling that the mines are still inhabited by those who never left. The mines, architecture, and condition amplify the haunting experiences. Narrow tunnels, twisting shafts, and decayed wooden supports create acoustics that make small noises sound much louder or closer than they are. Sudden cold drafts and inexplicable temperature drops often coincide with apparitions or auditory events, giving the impression that the tunnels themselves are alive with the memories of the miners' lives and deaths. Paranormal teams frequently report electromagnetic anomalies, orbs, and shadow forms in areas associated with historical accidents. Even above ground, near abandoned cabins, rail lines, and processing equipment, visitors report fleeting shadows, mysterious sounds, and the sensation of being observed. Respectful behavior appears to influence the intensity of paranormal activity. Many explorers leave small offerings, such as coins, stones, or personal items near tunnel entrances or locations of known tragedies. These gestures are believed to ease the presence of spirits, reducing sudden chills, phantom footsteps, or shadowy apparitions. Others move cautiously, aware that loud movements or careless actions may provoke more pronounced manifestations. Whether real or residual, the feeling that minor spirits linger is heightened by the sense that these abandoned spaces are still occupied in some way. The hauntings of the Tanapa mining district are inseparable from its violent and tragic history. Unsafe working conditions, cave-ins, and disputes over mining claims created a harsh environment where death was ever present. The phantom sounds, shadowy figures, and cold, oppressive energy reported today are often considered residual echoes of miners' fear, suffering, and toil. These experiences remind visitors that the past refuses to remain silent, replaying moments of danger, exhaustion, and tragedy in the tunnels and shafts of the district. Today, the Tanapa Mining District attracts adventurers, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts. The mines, shafts, and surrounding infrastructure are more than abandoned relics. They are memorials to the laborers who risked and lost their lives beneath the desert hills. Visitors report hearing phantom voices, seeing fleeting shadow figures, and feeling cold drafts in areas with no ventilation. Some tunnels are described as disorienting, creating the sensation that one cannot exit without being observed by unseen eyes, leaving explorers with a lingering impression of the miners' eternal presence. Gold Acres, Nevada, is a region steeped in the legacy of silver and gold mining, a place where ambition and desperation intertwine beneath the desert sun. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, miners arrived in droves, drawn by the promise of wealth hidden deep underground. The mines, however, were treacherous from the outset. Narrow shafts, decaying supports, and poorly ventilated tunnels created a deadly environment where accidents were common and life was fragile. Disputes over claims and resources often turned violent, adding human conflict to the inherent dangers of mining. Those who died in these shafts left behind not only the physical traces of their labor but, according to many witnesses, lingering spiritual imprints. Today, Gold Acres is largely abandoned, yet paranormal activity continues to draw curiosity seekers and investigators who report ghostly whispers, shadowy figures, and the sounds of tools striking rocks long after the mines fell silent. As visitors approach the entrances of Gold Acres mines, a palpable shift in the environment is often reported. The dry desert heat gives way to sudden chills, and the shadows appear unnaturally dark, even under the midday sun. Silence dominates, yet it is a tense silence, thick with the sense of unseen eyes observing each movement. Many explorers describe the sensation of being followed by a presence, a weight in the air that grows heavier the deeper they venture into the tunnels. The darkness within the mines seems almost alive, pressing in from every angle. And the eerie quiet is occasionally punctuated by inexplicable sounds that hint at lives once lived and lost below the surface. Auditory phenomena are a defining feature of the Gold Acres hauntings. Visitors often hear whispers drifting through empty shafts, voices that are too soft to be fully understood, yet unmistakably human in tone. Some claim to hear arguments, echoes of disputes between miners that occurred decades ago, or the murmur of conversations replayed as if the tunnels themselves remember. The creak and scrape of tools striking rocks or dragging across stone floors are frequently reported, sounding as though miners are still laboring in the darkness, oblivious to the passage of time. On some occasions, faint laughter, sometimes light, sometimes manic, floats through the tunnels, leaving visitors unnerved and uncertain whether it originates from the living or the dead. Paranormal investigators often interpret these sounds as residual energy, the imprint of extreme fear, exhaustion, and human desperation left behind by those who died amid the work of extracting precious metals. Visual experiences add a chilling dimension to the hauntings. Shadowy figures are frequently glimpsed at the periphery of vision, moving near collapsed entrances, rusty carts, and abandoned tools. Some witnesses report seeing miners in period clothing, carrying lanterns, or crouched over invisible implements, frozen in the act of work. These figures are often fleeting, vanishing when approached, yet leaving an undeniable impression that the tunnels are still inhabited by those who perished within them. Photographic and video documentation occasionally captures indistinct forms, glowing eyes, or moving shadows, which disappear the moment the viewer tries to focus directly on them. These visual phenomena suggest that the miners' spirits remain tethered to the locations where they lived and died, endlessly replaying the routines and struggles of their final moments. The structure of Goldacre's mines amplifies the sense of unease. Narrow, winding shafts and deteriorating wooden supports create acoustics that magnify even the faintest sounds, making footsteps and tool clinks appear unnaturally close or loud. Abrupt drops in temperature or sudden drafts seem to coincide with sightings or auditory phenomena, enhancing the perception that the mines are alive with the memories of those who once labored there. Paranormal teams often detect electromagnetic anomalies, shadow forms, and unexplained orbs in areas historically associated with accidents or disputes. Even above ground, near old rail lines, collapsed buildings, and rusted equipment, visitors report sudden sensations of being watched, fleeting shadows, and sounds that have no apparent source. Explorers often leave small offerings as a mark of respect to the miners' spirits. Coins, stones, or personal items placed near tunnel entrances or accident sites are believed to reduce the intensity of paranormal activity, allowing visitors a temporary reprieve from cold spots, whispers, or shadowy figures. Others move deliberately and quietly through the shafts, understanding that noise or careless behavior may provoke stronger manifestations. These acts of respect suggest that the presence of spirits is not hostile but tied to the memories of labor, suffering, and untimely death. The hauntings of Goldacre's mines are inseparable from the history of the region. Unsafe working conditions, frequent cavings, and violent disputes created an environment in which death was ever present. The phantom voices, shadowy figures, and sounds of tools hitting stone are seen by many as residual echoes of miners' fear, exhaustion, and desperation. These experiences serve as a reminder that the past persists, replaying moments of hardship, conflict, and final labor long after the miners themselves have vanished. Today, Goldacres draws adventurers, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts eager to explore its historic mines. The tunnels are more than abandoned shafts. They are monuments to the lives lost underground. Visitors frequently report hearing phantom footsteps, witnessing fleeting shadow figures, and experiencing sudden cold drafts that defy explanation. The spirits appear bound to the areas where they worked and died, endlessly repeating the routines of labor and despair. The Manhattan gold mines, nestled in the remote deserts of Nevada, are relics of a time when the promise of fortune drew miners into unforgiving terrain. Though small compared to some of the region's larger mining operations, these shafts were notoriously dangerous. The miners who worked here faced narrow, unstable tunnels, extreme heat, poor ventilation, and the constant threat of cave-in. Accidents were frequent, and many lives were lost to rock collapses, disease, or exhaustion. Over time, the mines fell into disuse, leaving behind rusted tools, collapsed shafts, and the skeletal remains of the infrastructure that once supported a bustling, perilous industry. Yet, the Manhattan gold mines have never truly been silent. Visitors and paranormal investigators often report hearing ghostly voices, distant footsteps, and moans that echo unnervingly through the abandoned tunnels. Shadowy figures appear at the edge of vision, vanishing when observed directly, suggesting that the miners who perished here may still linger, bound to the tunnels that claimed them. As one approaches the entrances to these mines, the change in atmosphere is immediate. The desert heat fades into a cool, oppressive air that seems to weigh on the body. Shadows deepen unnaturally along cracked walls and uneven floors, and the silence is punctuated only by sounds that seem too deliberate to be caused by the wind or settling earth. Many visitors report an almost tactile sense of being observed, as though invisible eyes track each movement through the winding shafts. Even in daylight, the tunnels exude a darkness that feels alive, a living reminder of the human toil and tragedy that occurred within their confines. Auditory phenomena are the most frequently reported experiences in the Manhattan mines. Explorers often hear whispered conversations echoing through empty shafts, fragments of speech that seem too coherent to be dismissed as random echoes. Some claim to hear arguments, instructions, or murmurs from men long dead, replaying moments of labor or conflict from over a century ago. The distant clinking of tools striking rock, the scraping of carts along rails, and faint footsteps on wooden planks are common reports. Occasionally, visitors describe hearing low moans or cries for help, seeming to emanate from collapsed or sealed-off sections of the mines. Paranormal investigators often interpret these sounds as residual energy, the lingering imprint of intense fear, exhaustion, or violent death left behind by the miners who once labored here. Visual manifestations add another layer of unease. Shadowy forms are frequently seen at the edge of vision, sometimes moving along tunnels, sometimes crouched over invisible tools. Witnesses often report fleeting glimpses of miners in period clothing, carrying lanterns or shovels, appearing to work tirelessly as though frozen in time. These figures often disappear when approached, reinforcing the impression that the mines remain inhabited by those who died within them. Some explorers have captured these shapes on cameras only to have them vanish when viewed directly, suggesting that the apparitions exist in a liminal space, partially tethered to the physical world but bound by the events that claimed their lives. The mine structure intensifies the haunting. Narrow, twisting corridors and decayed wooden supports amplify even minor sounds, making footsteps, whispers, and tool clinks seem closer, sharper, and more deliberate than they should. Sudden gusts of cold air or inexplicable temperature drops often coincide with sightings or auditory phenomena, giving the impression that the tunnels themselves remember and react to the presence of the living. Paranormal teams have frequently documented electromagnetic anomalies, orbs of light, and moving shadows in areas associated with known fatalities or historical accidents. Even above ground, around abandoned rail tracks, equipment, and crumbling cabins, visitors report fleeting shadows, inexplicable noises, and a persistent sense of being watched. Many who explore the Manhattan gold mines leave small offerings as signs of respect. Coins, stones, or personal objects placed near tunnel entrances or locations tied to historical accidents are believed to ease the intensity of paranormal activity, reducing the likelihood of cold spots, whispered voices, or sudden apparitions. Others move quietly and deliberately through the shafts, aware that loud movements or reckless actions may provoke more pronounced manifestations, whether real or residual. These experiences create the undeniable impression that the miners' spirits linger, tethered to the tunnels and the labor that defined their lives. The hauntings of the Manhattan mines are inseparable from their violent and tragic history. Unsafe working conditions, collapses, and disputes over claims created a dangerous environment where death was an ever-present companion. The phantom voices, shadowy figures, and unexplained noises reported today are often interpreted as echoes of the miners' fear, exhaustion, and untimely deaths. These experiences are a stark reminder that the past refuses to remain buried, replaying moments of danger, hardship, and final labor in the tunnels long after the miners themselves have vanished. Today, the Manhattan gold mines attract adventurers, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts. The abandoned shafts are more than relics. They are monuments to lives lost beneath the desert floor. Visitors frequently report hearing ghostly footsteps, seeing shadowy figures, and feeling sudden drops in temperature in areas where no breeze should exist. The tunnels create a disorienting effect, making it difficult to navigate without the sensation of being observed by unseen eyes, leaving explorers with an enduring impression of the miners' presence. The rhyolite silver mines, nestled in the arid expanse of Nevada's desert, are relics of a once booming mining town. In the early 20th century, miners flooded the area, lured by the promise of silver hidden deep beneath the rocky soil. Life underground was harsh and unforgiving. Tunnels were narrow and unstable, ventilation was minimal, and the risk of collapse was ever present. Accidents were frequent, some fatal, and disputes over claims or pay sometimes turned violent. Over decades, many miners lost their lives in these shafts, leaving behind tools, rails, and a lingering presence that local lore suggests has never truly departed. Today, the rhyolite silver mines are abandoned, their decaying wooden supports and rusted equipment standing as silent witnesses to past tragedies. Yet, those who venture into the mines often report chilling experiences, faint whispers, sudden drops in temperature, and fleeting apparitions in the area. The eerie reputation of the phantom echo. Approaching the mines, the change in atmosphere is immediate. The desert's heat seems to dissipate near the entrances, replaced by an unnatural cold that presses against the skin. Shadows stretch and twist along crumbling walls, and the silence is thick, almost tangible. Visitors frequently describe the sensation of being watched, an invisible gaze following every step into the twisting tunnels. Even in broad daylight, the mines feel suffocatingly dark, as if the shadows themselves hold the memories of the miners who once toiled and died within. Auditory phenomena are the hallmark of the rhyolite hauntings. Many visitors report hearing the faint murmur of voices that seem to rise from deep within the tunnels. Whispers that are indecipherable yet unmistakably human. Some claim to hear arguments replayed from long-ago disputes, commands given during labor, or anguished cries from miners trapped during collapses. The clatter of tools striking rock, the scrape of ore carts on rails, and the distant sound of footsteps are common occurrences, often experienced in parts of the mines far from any known entrance. Occasionally, faint laughter or groaning drifts through the tunnels, sometimes eerie, sometimes manic, leaving explorers unsettled. Paranormal investigators suggest these sounds are residual energy, echoes of fear, exertion, and violent deaths embedded into the very structure of the tunnels. Visual encounters intensify the mine's spectral reputation. Shadowy figures are often glimpsed in peripheral vision, moving along the tunnels or standing near old rails and equipment. Witnesses sometimes see miners dressed in early 20th century work clothes, hunched over lanterns or tools, frozen in the act of labor. These apparitions vanish when approached, giving the impression that the miners remain tethered to the shafts, replaying the routines of their final hours. Some explorers have captured fleeting images on camera, only to find the forms vanish upon review, suggesting that the spirits exist in a liminal space, partially connected to the physical world but trapped by the trauma of their deaths. The mine's architecture and deterioration amplify these eerie phenomena. Narrow shafts and crumbling wooden supports create acoustics that make miner sounds unnaturally loud, echoing as if amplified by unseen forces. Sudden drafts or temperature drops often accompany sightings or auditory events, reinforcing the sense that the tunnels themselves are alive with memory. Paranormal teams frequently detect electromagnetic anomalies, unexplained orbs, and moving shadows in areas associated with historical accidents. Even outside the mines, near collapsed buildings, old processing equipment, and rail lines, visitors report sudden chills, fleeting shadows, and footsteps that cannot be accounted for. Many who explore the rhyolite silver mines leave small offerings, such as coins, stones, or personal objects, near entrances or accident sites. These gestures are thought to appease the spirits, reducing sudden cold spots or disturbing apparitions. Others proceed quietly and cautiously, aware that loud movements or reckless behavior may provoke stronger manifestations. Whether real or residual, the presence of these miners is undeniable, their sorrow and desperation imprinted on the environment, leaving a lasting impression on those who enter the abandoned shafts. The hauntings of rhyolite are inseparable from the history of danger and death in the mines. Unsafe working conditions, frequent collapses, and human conflict created an environment in which mortality was a constant companion. The phantom voices, shadowy figures, and unexplained sounds are often interpreted as echoes of fear, exhaustion, and violent deaths. These experiences serve as stark reminders that the past is never truly gone, replaying moments of hardship, fear, and final labor long after the miners themselves have vanished. Today, the rhyolite silver mines attract adventurers, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts alike. The shafts are more than abandoned tunnels. They are memorials to those who perished underground, Visitors frequently report hearing ghostly conversations, footsteps, and the clatter of tools on stone. Sudden cold drafts and shadowy figures reinforce the impression that the miners' spirits are still present, unable or unwilling to leave. Some tunnels are described as disorienting, creating the unsettling feeling that one cannot exit without being observed by unseen eyes. Locals warn that some spirits are vengeful, guarding the places where they died with a lingering, restless presence. Virginia City, Nevada, once thrived as the epicenter of the Comstock Lode, drawing thousands of miners in the mid-19th century. With promises of silver wealth, beneath the bustling streets and wooden buildings lay a labyrinth of dangerous tunnels, where men toiled endlessly under extreme conditions. The mines were narrow, poorly ventilated, and riddled with unstable rock. Explosions, cave-ins, and disputes over claims or wages were common, claiming countless lives. Even those who survived the daily perils often faced malnutrition, disease, and exhaustion. Over time, the mines were abandoned, leaving behind rusted equipment, collapsed shafts, and an enduring legacy of death and despair. Yet those who explore the Virginia City historic mines today report that the past refuses to remain buried. Shadowy figures, spectral workers, ghostly laughter, and sudden cold drafts have been reported deep within the tunnels, suggesting that the spirits of miners who perished here remain trapped, endlessly reliving their final, terrifying moments. Visitors approaching the entrances of the Virginia City mines often sense an immediate change in the atmosphere. The desert heat seems to vanish near the mouth of the shafts, replaced by an oppressive chill that creeps along the spine. Shadows deepen unnaturally along crumbling walls, and the silence is thick, almost suffocating. Many report a palpable feeling of being observed, as if the tunnels themselves are alive with unseen eyes. Even during the daytime, the interiors feel dark and foreboding, as if the history of labor, fear, and death has left a lasting imprint on the very walls. Auditory experiences are among the most common reports from the mines. Whispers, faint conversations, and murmurs echo through the empty tunnels, often too coherent to dismiss as random echoes. Visitors describe hearing arguments between miners over claims or instructions, cries of pain from accidents, and even low guttural laughter that drifts unnervingly along the passageways. The distant sound of tools striking rock or carts scraping along rails is frequently reported, as if the miners are still hard at work centuries later. Some witnesses recount hearing groans or muffled screams from collapsed shafts, suggesting the unresolved presence of those who perished in sudden disasters. Paranormal researchers often interpret these sounds as residual energy, impressions of fear, pain, and frustration that linger long after death. Visual phenomena reinforce the haunting reputation of the Virginia City mines. Shadowy forms are regularly glimpsed at the periphery of vision, moving along the shafts or crouched over invisible tools. Some explorers report seeing miners in period clothing, carrying lanterns or pickaxes, frozen in their tasks. These apparitions often vanish when directly approached, giving the impression that the spirits are tethered to the mines, replaying the routines of their final hours. Photographs and videos sometimes capture indistinct shapes, glowing eyes, or moving shadows that cannot be identified on closer inspection, lending further evidence to the belief that the mines are far from empty. The mine's construction and decay contribute to the eerie phenomena. Narrow corridors, uneven wooden supports, and crumbling walls amplify even faint sounds, making them appear unnaturally close or loud. Sudden cold drafts, sometimes felt in areas with no airflow, often accompany sightings or auditory phenomena. Paranormal teams frequently detect electromagnetic anomalies, orbs, and shadowy movements in sections historically associated with accidents, explosions, or disputes. Even above ground, around collapsed buildings, rusted carts, and abandoned processing equipment, visitors report fleeting shadows, strange noises, and an unshakable sense of being watched. Explorers of Virginia City's mines often leave offerings, coins, stones, or personal items near entrances or locations associated with accidents. These acts of respect are thought to calm the spirits, reducing the frequency or intensity of cold spots, whispers, and apparitions. Others move cautiously through the tunnels, understanding that loud movements or careless behavior may provoke stronger manifestations. Whether the miner's presence is residual or conscious, the experiences leave visitors with an undeniable impression that the past continues to live within the tunnels. Bound by the memories of labor, conflict, and untimely death, the hauntings of Virginia City are inseparable from its history of danger and tragedy. Unsafe working conditions, frequent collapses, and violent disputes created a deadly environment where mortality was constant. The phantom voices, shadowy figures, and unexplained sounds reported today are often seen as echoes of the miner's fear, exhaustion, and violent deaths. Each encounter is a reminder that history is not confined to textbooks. It persists, replaying the miner's struggles and final moments for those brave enough to enter the abandoned shafts. Today, Virginia City's mines attract adventurers, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts seeking to experience the legendary hauntings firsthand. The tunnels are more than abandoned workspaces. They are living memorials to those who perished underground. Explorers report phantom footsteps, ghostly conversations, and the clatter of tools on stone floors. Sudden chills and the appearance of shadowy figures reinforce the sense that the miner's spirits remain, unable or unwilling to leave the shafts that claimed their lives. Some tunnels are disorienting, creating the unnerving impression that one cannot exit without being observed by unseen entities. Locals often warn visitors to tread carefully, as some spirits are said to harbor resentment, guarding the tunnels where they suffered and died. Nevada's haunted mines are more than abandoned tunnels and rusted equipment. They are a testament to human ambition, suffering, and the price paid for wealth. The spirits trapped within these dark shafts continue to whisper, echo, and linger, reminding us that some legacies are not buried but live on in shadow and sorrow. If you ever find yourself wandering near these haunted mines, remember, the walls have ears, the tunnels have eyes, and the spirits of the past are never truly gone. Listen closely, and you may hear the faint echo of a pickaxe, the distant murmur of a miner, or a voice calling your name. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Nevada's darkest and most haunted mines. If you enjoyed this chilling exploration, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, because the desert holds more ghostly stories waiting to be told. Until next time, keep your lights on and your ears open.